Dr. Fab's really good.
Go.
So then I just wanted to like I agree.
So I have to look at like analyzing it in terms of how it fits into political theory. So I'm doing like structure.
Wait, Noah. Is that the one with the Lawrence of Arabia?
Yeah, it's Lawrence of Arabia.
Did that take the David's deal?
You're on identity, possibly.
I turned it into David's deal. And got one.
You're on identity, and we want to maybe just write out everything about identity, and then just like write words about that.
Don't look at it.
I think I have to rewatch it. I don't even remember.
And maybe take notes, like take notes while you're watching.
Yeah, I did take notes.
Yeah.
I should have.
Did you just?
Oh, I was hitting everything.
Oh, okay.
Ooh, hella chairs. Move this one. Excuse me, Kevin. Of course. Right? That's what I'm saying. All right, if everyone will make their way to their chairs, we'll get started right away. All who's willing and able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now move into the land acknowledgement.
Colorado State University acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations and peoples.
This was also a site of trade, gathering, and healing for numerous other Native nations.
We recognize the indigenous peoples as original stewards of this land and all the relatives within it.
As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties nations have to their traditional homelands are renewed and reaffirmed.
CSU is a land-grant institution, and we accept that our mission must encompass access to education and inclusion.
And significantly, that our founding came at a dire cost to Native nations and peoples whose land this university was built upon.
This acknowledgement is the education and inclusion we must practice in recognizing our institutional history, responsibility, and commitment.
Will the clerk please call the roll? Senator Athey.
Here.
Senator Bilodeau.
Present.
Senator Brown. Senator Burge.
Present.
Senator Cadacetto Perez.
Presente.
Senator Correa. Senator Deason.
Present.
Senator Epperson.
Present.
Senator Kramer.
Senator Long. Here. Senator May.
Here.
Senator Mumford. Senator Nivert.
Here.
Chair Morgan. Senator Pyfrom. Chair Ritter. Senator Sandoval.
Present.
Senator Shepherd.
Present.
Senator Scherer. Chair Silverheart.
Present.
Senator Cheam. Officer Torres Doxy.
Present.
Senator Trout.
Present.
Chair Welch.
Present.
Senator Waller.
Present.
Senator Williamson.
Present.
Senator Sanchez.
Here.
Senator Nguyen.
Here.
Senator Rencher.
Present.
Associate Senator Dorak.
Present.
Associate Senator Quintana. Associate Senator Reeves. Associate Senator Abdunabi.
Present.
Speaker of the Senate, Hunter.
Present.
Parliamentarian Clark.
Present.
Thank you. We will now move into consent agenda. Is there any dissent to last week's minutes?
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but I missed my thing. I couldn't unmute in time. So Senator Scheer is here.
Thank you. We will now.
Same goes for Senator Correa. Sorry.
Was anyone else's name not called? Going once. Seeing none, we will now move into consent agenda. Is there any dissent to last week's minutes? Chair, the parliamentarian clerk.
So from what it looks like, the Senate minutes were not released on the ASCSU weekly email. And so I just moved that we table that until next week in terms of approval.
That works. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. These will be moved next week. Parliamentarian clerk.
Mr. Speaker, I motion to move old business at the top of confidence business. So after judicial reports, before new business.
This motion has been made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. Will the parliamentarian please make that change? Are there any other motions at this time? Seeing none, we will now move into gallery input. Is there any input from the gallery? This is for anyone back here, just so y'all know. If you're sitting behind here, this is your time to speak if you'd like to. Seeing none, we will now move on. We do not have a guest presentation this week. We'll move into executive reports. If there's a member from the executive branch that would like to present. Okay. Advisor Johnson, would you possibly see if Christian Luke is around? Thank you.
I don't have his report. I have my own.
You're good. You're good. You may present.
Hey y'all, I'm Benton Rosser. I know there's a few new faces in here. I use the he, him, his pronouns. I'm the director of housing security this year. I just wanted to let y'all know that next Monday, we're going to be doing another t-shirt tie-dye event. Our anti-U+2 campaign is going to continue. So these shirts exactly are what we're going to be tie-dyeing. We're going to be giving them out to students, and we'll also be doing another giveaway of bucket hats. And I would really, really love y'all to come help out, like just tie-dye shirts, like be a part of it. I also really would urge all of you to come, just take a shirt anyway, even if you're not going to tie-dye it. We really want these to be repped everywhere as much as we can to really get this movement going. I also have a bunch of stickers. Please take these stickers right now, right after this, anytime. I want to see these all over campus so we can really push this movement. We've already had some people say things about how they know about this, yet they haven't really been a part of it. They haven't really, I don't even know those people, which is exactly what I want. We want to make sure that everybody knows that this is happening and that we're fighting this. So like anything y'all can do to get the word out, like take these, hand them out, put them on your water bottles, talk about it. Anything you can do to spread that word. It'll really help us because this coming summer, we're going to be pushing our anti-U+2 campaign extremely, extremely hard. And then the last thing I wanted to share is that I have a sign-up sheet if anybody's interested to come with us to City Council and make public comment. If you just want to like put your name and your email, I have this huge email list that I'm building that we're just going to send one email every 2 weeks, so we won't like be spamming you. Just to remind you that City Council is on Tuesday night, 6 p.m. Public comment takes like 5 to 10 minutes. Like you only literally get 2 to 3 minutes. And I would absolutely love you to be there because we need to change the stamp law. It's really not helpful to us. Yeah, I appreciate the time. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. Are there any other members of the executive branch? Seeing none, we will now move into judicial reports. I think Chief Justice Freeman's having trouble getting on the Zoom, so we're gonna give her a few seconds here. I would entertain a motion to move judicial reports after old business, if that would be.
Motion to move judicial reports after old business.
Motion's been made. There's been a second. All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. Will the parliamentarian please make that change? And with that, we will now move into old business, starting with bill number 5118. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and abstract?
Bill 5118, supporting the bike security package. Abstract. This bill seeks to move $14,062.50 from the Senate Discretionary Fund to the Alternative Transportation Fee Advisory Board to support the funding of the bike security package at FAB proposal.
Will the parliamentarian please present conference committee reports if there is one?
Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. So Bill 5118 was seen by Internal Affairs Committee as well as Budgetary Affairs. Budgetary Affairs only made 2 changes. One of them was clerical. The other one added in a sunset clause right here on the bottom. And that was just setting the sunset clause for May 31st of 2023. The rest of the edits were made by Internal Affairs Committee, and I would defer over to Chair Athey for that report.
Chair Athey.
Sure, I was not prepared. Give me a second. Okay, so I don't mind if we skip to the important therefore clauses. Cool. Okay, so the main changes that we made were implementing, I'm gonna stand up straight. We're implementing these changes into the job descriptions as they stated, but this way they're actually written in. So we put it into Director of Campus Community, which currently doesn't exist, but those are in those are the new titles. So we had a chance to glance at those new job descriptions. So we are adding that they do exactly what they had said before: prepare the ULOC distribution program, working with the SCPS offices, the spoke, CSUPD, creating 2 QR codes, one for registering a bike and one for when a student's bike is stolen, as well as preparing educational resources and trackable stickers. And then we added basically the same bullet point under fall spring for that same person. Basically implementing the ULOC distribution program, working with the SCPS offices to provide information and refill their supply of ULOCs, as well as working with the spoke, CSUPD and CSUPD to provide information, create 2 QR codes, one for registering a bike, one for when a student's bike is stolen, as well as preparing educational resources and trackable stickers and analyzing the results of the intervention through the 2nd semester. That was the only real difference between those 2. I think that's all of the real changes that I made. Cool.
Does the author accept these changes? Yeah. The author has accepted these changes. We'll now enter discussion and debate on this bill as changed by committee, starting with the first race placard. Senator Trout.
So did this get the approval by the funding organization that this was needed for? I'm gonna guess because it's still here that it did, but just to make sure.
Yes, we just got confirmation about, what is it, 2 Mondays ago, that they did fund it, yeah. RHA funded the one camera outside of Summit, and AtFab decided to fund $58,000 for this project, yeah.
Okay, awesome. That's all. Thank you. I yield.
Are there any other points of discussion or debate? Are there any motions? Senator Williamson.
Move to previous question.
There's been a motion for previous question. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. We'll now move it into a voting period. This vote will be a standard placard vote. When I call, please raise your placard to signify your vote. All for the passage of Bill 5118. Please raise your placard now. Thank you. You may lower your placards. All against? And all abstentions? Seeing none, with a vote of 21 to 0, this bill passes.
Sorry, I just want to say like one really quick thing. I just like appreciate it so much. And I just think it's so amazing that we can use, you know, like this fraction of student fees and put it towards something like, you know, every student, if they all purchased a ULOC, it'd be like $150,000, you know, 3,000 students, $25 a ULOC, it'd be pretty expensive. 3,000 students getting ULOCs all in bulk for over half of, like for less than half of that. I mean, we're reaching over double the students. And I just think that that's amazing. And I just appreciate y'all so much for being a part of this and wanting to be a part of this and fighting for this with me, because I think it's like so cool that we can use and compile student fees to do something like this. Yeah, so I just want to say that. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Director Rossi. We will now move on to Lex number 5102. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and abstract?
Lex 5102, Constitutional Amendment in the Absence of a Senate Officer. Abstract, the purpose of this Lex is to amend the Constitution of the Associated Students of Colorado State University to provide specific guidelines for the elections of Senate officers in the case of an abdication. These elections shall be held no later than 15 business days after the abdication of the previous holder.
Will the Internal Affairs Chair present these changes?
Mr. Speaker, so last week we approved the Internal Affairs Committee changes. It was then discharged or sent over to University Affairs, where they discharged it with no edits.
Great, thank you. Awesome. So then we will now move into discussion and debate on this ledge, starting with the first raised placard. Senator Rencher.
I just had a quick question on this. I haven't had a time to check again, but I remember it previously corrected it to saying, I think it was 3 Senate sessions would be the limit, and in the abstract it says 15 business days. Is that consistent throughout the bill?
If I may, it does say that later in the bill.
Yep, that's correct, Senator Rencher. So it was amended to read 3 regularly scheduled Senate sessions. I can go ahead and make that edit now on the floor. And if we can approve that as a Senate to amend that in the abstract, we can get that squared away.
Great, thank you.
Are you making that motion, Parliamentarian Clerk?
Correct. A motion to strike the held no later than 15 business days and amend that to no later than 3 regularly scheduled Senate sessions.
This motion has been made and it has been seconded. Is there all for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. Will the parliamentarian please make that change? Are there any more points of discussion or debate? Chair Athey.
Okay, I actually have a question and then debate. So I would like to ask the author, why did Emory Jenkins student need to get this Lex? I yield to Senator Wong.
Would you mind repeating the question?
This Lex was originally sent to Emory Jenkins, and I would like to know why.
That was by the other author, not me.
Do you have any idea of that author's reasoning for that?
No, I have no idea.
Okay. This is a little bit scatterbrained because I have not had a chance to write what I was going to say, so I apologize. Based on the way that this was written, just in that last therefore clause of sending it to Emory Jenkins, I have a lot of concerns about this Lex because it feels more, not an attack, that's not the word I want, but hopefully you understand what I mean when I say that word. There's really a lot more of attacks on Emory for resigning than something that is going to create more inclusion within this space. Because I see no reason for her to need this Lex, other than the fact that she is the reason that we had to have an election. On top of that, I have concerns about setting a limit for when elections need to be, because it can easily end up limiting the time too much and therefore preventing people from outside of our organization from joining, which is going to eliminate the SCBS offices and make this space go back to a very privileged organization. And then one more thing, I recall doing the math, and if you eliminate winter break, as you would based on the way that this Lex is now written, because Senate doesn't meet over winter, the elections were held within that 3-week time frame. And so those are my thoughts. I'm still thinking, but that's all I have. Thanks.
Are there any other points of discussion or debate? Senator Burge.
I would motion to remove Emory Jenkins from the senators list.
Point of information internal did. I was just curious as the for initial.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other points of discussion or debate? I would encourage everyone to keep things quick. We're trying to move a lot and we have a lot in new business. Senator or Chair Welch.
So I understand why this was written. I think it's kind of smart, but the only reason why it took so long this last time was because it was right before dead week, then winter break, and a snow day, and then we were busy, and then another snow day. So the reason this took so long was because it was out of our hands. So I feel like making the Lex is kind of pointless, because if this didn't happen, it still would have been the 3 weeks. So I feel like I understand why it was written, but I don't think it's actually necessary for this Lex to exist, because when we had to do Lex again, we got it quickly done in 2 weeks. I think without bad weather and winter break, we'll be able to get it done in 3 weeks no matter what without Lex. So I am against this Lex, but I understand why it was written.
Are there any other points of discussion or debate? Senator Long.
Everyone, my name is Rob Long. I use the He series, and I'd like to thank Chair Athey for her contribution for this in the Internal Affairs Committee, and Evan as well in the University Affairs Committee. First things first, I was not aware of that change for Emory Jenkins. I agree that it shouldn't be sent to her. And that was a change made by the other author. And then regarding the whole, whether or not it was within 3 weeks, I just think it's a little, I mean, we had what, 2 snow days, 1 or 2 snow days at the start of this year, 2 snow days. But you know, we could have still held an emergency session. Even whether or not it was within 3 Senate sessions or not, I still think that we need a speaker pro tempore as soon as possible. And we actually did. I forgot, I think it was like 2 weeks after Emory resigned. You know, we made a motion to have elections held that night, but it was shot down. You know, I just feel that like with the whole elections and how it went. We only found one person that outside of ASCSU, after like, what, 5 or 6 weeks of like asking the SCPS offices, asking the college councils, talking everywhere. And I get like, you know, marketing hasn't been ideal this year for anyone. And I'm not trying to discredit anyone's work, but I feel that it's necessary for the future in case, there's enough of us here to prevent this from happening again. But I feel like, you know, 4 years down the road when none of us are here, it's important to set that precedent, set that ground rule in the Constitution, and make sure that we are running as efficiently as possible. Because part of the problems leading up to the election, I don't know how much of it was, you know, the Speaker Pro Tempore not being here or the former speaker, but I would argue that we embrace this Lex to have full operating efficiency within this space, and I will yield.
Are there any points of discussion or debate? I would encourage everyone to keep things moving quickly, keep points short. Senator Trout.
So my only concern with going back a couple months, the reason just for everyone for clarity, the reason that motion was shut down to do elections early was because individuals who expressed their interest of running either were not there or were not prepared to do presentations. So that's the reason that was shut down. That's all I have to say. Thank you. I yield.
Are there any other points of discussion or debate? Senator Burge.
Motion to end discussion debate.
There's been a motion to end discussion and debate. With this, this ledge will need one more reading. So this will be sent back to committee.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Lex 5102 is in third reading, and so this is the final vote tonight. It is Lex 5103 that will require another reading after this.
Thank you. I apologize. I was not here last week. So Lex 5102 will this is the final reading. With that, I will seek a motion if there is one at this time.
Why do we need a motion? Voting is after we ended discussion.
I guess you're right. All right, we'll now move into a vote on this Lex. This will be a placard vote again. Please raise your placard when I call for your vote. All for passing Leg 5102, please raise your placard. Thank you. All against? Thank you. And all abstentions? Thank you. With a vote of 14 to 3 to 4, this Lex passes. We'll now move on to Lex 5103. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and abstract?
Lex 5103, ensuring adherence to section 207 subsection E of ASCSU Constitution and the amendment of the same. Abstract, this Lex aims to ensure that Senate bylaws are tabled and approved in a timely manner for the smooth functioning of the ASCSU Senate.
Thank you. Is there a conference committee or changes to be reported?
Internal committee did make changes and defer over to Chair Athey.
Thank you. Chair Athey, you may present these changes.
Oh, I guess fancy microphone. Okay. I do want to note that the author was there for this whole thing, so all these changes were talked about with everyone. So we edited that word in my mouth. Changed where this was going to go in the Constitution. We changed what it was going to say just a little bit. It still says basically the same thing. Basically, internal decided that the process that we want to go through for new bylaws would be the new speaker presents them, and then we dissolve into conference committee, which is how this was originally written. And then conference committee decides. Thank you.
Committee of the whole.
Yeah, thank you. Parliamentarian clerk just corrected me as you said that. Committee of the whole, sorry. I'm a little bit discombobulated today, yeah. Rethinking. So we would immediately dissolve into a committee of the whole, and that committee would speak to if any changes that they thought were controversial. And then the Senate would decide to remove those changes temporarily and write those changes into a resolution to edit the bylaws later on in the Senate, so they can go through the full committee process as has happened this year. But that way we can pass the not really controversial changes first tonight. So we changed that in the Constitution, and we also worked to add this within the bylaws. Yeah, you all should have read those changes. I think this gets sent out. Does it get sent out? Cool. So you all should have been able to read those changes. That's generally all the changes.
Thank you. And seeing as the author was present, I'll ask if the author accepts these changes, but it sounds like they were. Yeah. Does the author accept these changes?
Yes, I do.
We'll now move into discussion and debate on this ledge, starting with the first raised placard. Chair Athey.
As this is only the second reading, it still requires a third. I motion to previous question.
There's been a motion to previous question. It has been seconded. All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion has been adopted. This ledge will be sent back to.
It's good. Motion to previous question and then a vote.
Yep.
Still requires.
So we'll now enter a vote on this ledge. All for passing or
Second reading, advancing.
second reading, advancing this ledge. Please raise your placard. Thank you. All against? Thank you. And all abstentions. Thank you. With a vote of 21 to 0 to 1, this ledge will advance to a third reading, and it'll be sent to University Affairs, I believe. Awesome. This concludes old business. Is there a member of the judicial branch that would like to report?
Hi, y'all. I'm here. Sorry, I cannot turn my camera on. I am deathly ill, and it's just not a pretty sight. So, Exec 1, the branch wars. Thank you to all who participated in that. We really appreciate it. And I believe that's it. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the judicial branch that would like to report? Seeing none, President Dixon, did you have anything to add to executive reports? If you'd like to add them, yeah. Is everyone okay with that? Seeing no dissent.
We've got the handheld today. This is so fancy. Just two quick updates. How many of you are already RSVP for the roundtable discussion tomorrow? Nice. Okay. So I will put some flyers at the front of the podium there. If you'd like to join, it's tomorrow at 5:30 p.m., 5:30 to 7 in the North Ballroom. It's pretty amazing. Anya got all of City Council, the mayor and 6 City Council members, as well as the county commissioners and the district sustainability officer, and one other person that I'm forgetting. They're all coming into town. They're excited to meet you all to discuss student issues. And it should be a pretty dynamic event if you've been to it before. So I'll include those sign up, that RSVP form and the QR code right on the front desk here. And then the other one is just this Saturday. For those of you that aren't doing CS Unity, the ASCSU Spring Unity Tailgate is happening from 10 to 1. The football game is right after. The whole weekend is in support of the cystic fibrosis philanthropy. in our partnership with athletics. And Brothers Barbecue will be catering the event, so we'll have enough food for about 800 people. And we've got 6 clubs and organizations already signed up. RHA will be there tailgating with us at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Should be a blast. We'll have a live DJ as well. We'd love for you all to stop by. And if you have any questions, let me know. But other than that, happy to field any questions. We've got 2 bills on the floor tonight. I do specifically, so excited to share that, and I'll pass it back to you all.
Thank you. If you have any questions, please reach out to President Dixon. We're going to try to move through things relatively quickly here. And with that, as we move into new business, I just want to encourage everyone to keep things quick. We don't want to spend more than 10 minutes on each piece of legislation if it's possible, just because we have a full docket tonight. With that, we're going to move into new business, resolution number 5110. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and abstract?
Resolution 5110, supporting students in break housing. Abstract, this resolution seeks to recognize the progress between ASCSU, Rams Against Hunger, and housing and dining services towards food and housing security for CSU students who use break housing through fall, winter, and spring breaks. This will also act as an agreement between ASCSU, RAH, and HDS that all eligible students will have access to the RAH meal swipe program over the aforementioned breaks with the agreements outlined in the therefore clauses.
Is there an author present? Resolution 5110. Is there an author present? Director Rossley, you can present.
And point of information, Mr. Speaker, I believe Deputy Director Fias is also supposed to be here within the next 10 to 20 minutes. So, I mean, if it's most convenient for y'all, I would even entertain a motion to move this resolution a little further down in the agenda, just so that the authors can be present to, all the authors can be present to present.
Are you making this motion, Parliamentarian Clerk?
That is correct, Mr. Speaker. I am making a motion to move resolution 5110 before Bill 5124 and after Bill 5122.
This motion has been made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. Will the parliamentarian please make that change? With that, we will move to bill number 5120. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and abstract?
Bill 5120, establishing the Constitution Caucus and the adoption of its bylaws. Abstract, this bill seeks to establish a caucus for the purposes of rewriting the ASCSU Constitution and preventing the nullification of 50th and 51st Senate constitutional amendments. All citations of the ASCSU Constitution within this bill refers to the version submitted during the 2022 ASCSU general election.
Is there an author present?
Yep, and it's me. I'm going to turn it over to Chair Athey to parliamentarians.
Thank you. Parliamentarian Clerk, you may present.
Okay. Hey, Senate. This is pretty interesting for me. In all my time here, this is actually the first bill I've ever written, and so wonderful times. But this idea kind of came about after the election results. Of course, as you all know, we only received about 6% of the student vote in this year's election, and because of that, all of the amendments, constitutional amendments that we made this year have been or will be nullified basically once the 52nd Senate commences on either May 6th or May 4th. I'm not entirely sure just yet. However, last year, during the last ASCSU election, the version of the Constitution that was submitted did not have any of the changes that we made during the 50th Senate either. And so it's pretty safe to assume that both 50th and 51st Senate amendments will be nullified due to the fact that we haven't ratified the Constitution this year. And so I came about with the idea of establishing a Constitution caucus. The first task of this caucus would be to produce elects to bring all of those amendments back. Traditionally, we have implemented constitutional amendments upon the signature of a president. And so that Lex is built on that assumption. I'm currently in the process of writing that right now, and it should be done here pretty soon. That first task is basically laid out so that we can create this need for the 51st Senate to implement a Constitution caucus. The importance of that being that we would not be able to create caucuses with the same amount of power as we have before because the caucus clause was enacted in the 50th Senate. And so we would have to either implement it here in the 51st or wait until Alexis produced passed through the 52nd Senate. Along with that, the caucus is basically charged with the task of producing, brainstorming, figuring out new constitutional amendments to implement, rewriting the Constitution throughout the summer occasionally and mostly throughout the academic year. The plan is that I would be chairing this caucus until the end of the summer, and then we would hold an election before the first Senate session in the fall. Basically the way that it works too is through consensus building. Of course, all the ledges that this caucus would produce would still go through the same standard legislation route in terms of going to committees, having 3 readings. There would be nothing changed from that. We wouldn't have any powers in terms of endorsement or sponsoring. This would just basically be an opportunity for all of us to come together, work through constitutional amendments, create one or several mega ledges, and pass through that and hopefully kind of take a little bit of the pressure off of the other internal committees in terms of making those edits when they are presented. And so with that, I will yield the floor, Mr. Speaker, for any questions. Actually, I'm so sorry, one last thing. I was also hoping possibly with y'all's approval and hope to expedite this bill as well. This would just give our caucus more time to hold multiple sessions before we leave and adjourn as the 51st Senate. And so if not, that's absolutely okay too. We would still be able probably to hold one session together during the 51st, but it would be preferable to expedite this bill. But yeah, I'll open up to any questions.
So, Charity.
This isn't a question, this is a plan of information that internal affairs did endorse this, I believe. So it did technically already endorse.
Thank you. Senator Deason.
Can I make a motion to expedite this bill?
Second.
All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. This legislation will be expedited. Are there any other questions for the author? Senator Trout.
Hi, I know we talked about this a little bit more within internal affairs and then you and I personally, but just so all Senate kind of gets a vibe for it. After the 52nd after the 52nd Senate adjourns, that the Constitution Caucus dissolves, basically. Can you explain to Senate what your reasoning was behind that?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for that, Senator Trout. My reasoning behind it is that the Constitution is supposed to be permanent, and if we had an indefinite Constitution caucus, that would mean that we were always working on the Constitution, and that just did not feel right. And so there are no provisions in here that would allow for this caucus to extend any further beyond the end of the 52nd Senate. If y'all wanted to bring it back through a different bill, that's completely fine. That's in your prerogative and in your wheelhouse. But I do feel like with a definitive timeline, we would be able to have that kind of motivation and that charge to be able to see things through. And honestly, it kind of gives me the energy too to see like, oh, you know, we have from here till then. Let's try and figure out a way to make this organization better through that long stretch. And so, yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
It sure does. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Waller.
So I guess my question is, would this caucus give the constitutional amendments temporary legitimacy until we were able to get 10% of the student vote, or would it give the amendments permanent legitimacy?
The caucus itself wouldn't necessarily give any of those amendments legitimacy. It would be producing legislation to be passed. And then once it's passed and signed by the president, that would be implemented. So traditionally the route that we basically go with these kinds of things, and because we haven't, this is kind of like the first time that we haven't been able to ratify the Constitution, we're kind of navigating through new ground as y'all have kind of experienced a few weeks prior. The idea is that, well, we would introduce these amendments within the caucus. We would produce that ledge. We would get it through the Senate, and then once it's passed, signed, it would be implemented. That is still open to ratification from the student body in the next general election. So say, for example, all of those amendments made even during the 52nd Senate would be presented up in May for ratification. And if it doesn't get 10% of the vote, it's nullified again, and we go through that process again. But hopefully that answers your question.
Sure does. Thank you. I yield my time.
Are there any other questions for the author? Seeing none, thank you. We'll be sending this to University Affairs. Oh, expedited, my bad. We'll now move into discussion and debate, starting with the first raised placard. Senator Williamson.
Motion to previous question.
There's been a motion to previous question. It has been seconded. All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. We'll now enter a vote. This will be a standard placard vote. Please raise your placard.
Motion for unanimous consent.
There's been motion for unanimous consent. Is there dissent? Seeing none, this bill passes. Thank you. We'll now move on to bill number 5121. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and abstract?
Sounds great. And thank you again, everybody. Really do appreciate it.
Good job, Kevin.
Bill 5121 requests to use the BSOF General Fund to fund the Computer Science Building water fountains. Abstract. This bill requests $16,000 to be moved from the 2021 to 2022 Board for Student Organization funding budget to the Senate General Fund to be allocated to facilities management for the Computer Science Student Lounge and Hallways remodel project.
Is there an author present? Senator Deason.
Point of information, at least in the email, Bill 5121 does not have a sponsor. Does that not mean that it can't be presented on the floor?
Because BSOF endorsed it, then in the bylaws, that's all we need for it to be seen on the floor.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Authors may present.
Okay, so this project originally came about when the College of Natural Sciences presented to UFAB, and ultimately UFAB decided not to fund the project, but Director Rossler was still kind of talking to the people involved. And then it ended up where the college decided to fund a lot of the project. And then he was so generous in giving part of his budget as well. And so they just needed $16,000 more in order to complete this project. So what it would do is install new water fountains for like actual water bottle filling stations instead of the current just normal water fountains in the computer science building. And one of the problems that will solve is that currently the way that it's set up is causing mold to grow in the carpet. And so part of their whole project is to replace all of the carpeting, but that's being funded by the college. So what this bill, what the BSOF funds go towards is just the installation and all those associated costs of installing the actual water bottle filling stations. So it's not requesting any money from Senate or anything. We just have to BSOF has to get support for the funds to be spent in this way. So that's what this bill is seeking. And some of these changes on here that you see, that second therefore clause, it's just pulling the sunset clause out of the first one and just making its own therefore clause. And then the second therefore, or sorry, that's the third one. And then the second one on there just states that $15,000 will be allocated from the Director of Housing Security discretionary budget. And so all of that money will just go into the Senate General Fund to then be allocated for the project so that we follow all of the funding rules.
Thank you. We'll now enter question and answer period. Are there any questions for the authors? Senator Waller.
Do you know approximately how many of these water bottle filling stations will be installed?
There are 4, one on each floor of the building.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the authors? Seeing none, thank you. This will be sent to University Affairs.
Actually, can we motion to expedite it? VSOF bills only need one reading on the floor.
Yes, you're right.
Point for clarification, everyone, according to the bylaws, section 5, subsection D, bills sponsored or endorsed by BSOF shall require only one reading.
Thank you. So with that, we will enter discussion and debate, starting with the first raised placard. Senator Long.
I actually had a question, if we could go back to that real quick.
I'll permit it, but we did move out of question and answer, but you can ask your question during discussion and debate. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I was on BSOF last year and we wrote a bill similar to this. This bill's for a lesser amount, I'm pretty sure. Last year was 35,000, something like that. Do you foresee this like being a common, would you like see this happening next year of like a project being funded by BSOF using excess funds?
I can take this. So historically, BSOF usually does not use all their funds. We cut the budget from $200,000 to $150,000 this year, which I think was a good move by President Dixon. However, we have spent a good amount of our funds. I would assume that goes up next year as things get more normal. I could see a situation where we have similar opportunities to fund projects at the end of the year. However, I expect the remaining balance at the end of the school year to be less after this year.
All right, thank you. That answers my question.
Are there any other points of discussion and debate? Seeing none, we'll now move into voting period.
I do have something to say, Mr. Speaker.
There you go.
Yeah, so in the last therefore clause, it says, therefore be it hereby enacted that $15,000 shall be allocated from the Director of Housing Security discretionary budget for the water fountain thingy. And I don't think Senate has any say in that. So do we really need it in the bill? Apologies for my voice. I'm kind of sick right now.
You may yield to one of the authors if you would like to.
Hi, I can answer that as well if that would be helpful.
Yield to Chief Justice Freeman.
Hi, sorry. Yeah, the Supreme Court's ruling that you do need a bill to do like multiple budgets. That would mean that you need this in there. Does that answer your question? It was like our second ruling, I believe.
Okay, the Supreme Court says so. Thank you. I yield.
Are there any other points of discussion or debate? Seeing none, we may now move into a voting period on this piece of legislation. This will be a standard placard vote. All for passing bill number 5121, please raise your placards or raise your hand on Zoom. Thank you. All against? Thank you, and all abstentions. Thank you, and with a vote of 21 to 0 to 1, this bill passes. Thank you. We will now move on in our agenda to bill number 5122. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and abstract?
Apologies, Mr. Speaker, just give me one moment as I pull up the bill. Bill 5122, the Legacy Act, establishing a CSU coordinator for immigrant services and programs. Abstract. This bill will fund 2 years of salary and fringe benefits for a transformational position at Colorado State University, the coordinator for immigrant services and programs, to be housed in the CSU Office of Inclusive Excellence. $126,000 and $126,720 will be earmarked in the ASCSU fund balance to to be utilized by the Office of Inclusive Excellence for this position with the following financial breakdown. $70,000 from ASCSU Board for Student Organization Funding, $20,000 from ASCSU Office of the President Discretionary, $5,000 from ASCSU Senate Discretionary, and $31,720 from ASCSU Fund Balance.
Thank you. Is there author present?
Yes, thank you so much. Love to start with this. How many of you have heard of this project before? I know I've mentioned it a handful of times. This has been about a 10-month journey that I've gone on, a 6-month learning tour that started with a conversation with Dora Frias, the director of El Centro, as well as Penny Gonzalez Soto, the director of Student Legal Services, Amy Hoven, the director or the advisor to the Undoc United student organization here at CSU. And the conversation that I had, stemming from another conversation I had with Sylvia Soler Gallego, a staff member in the languages department here at CSU, was around how do we support immigrant, undocumented refugee, and English as a second language students at CSU. Where are the resources? What staff members are working on this? And I went into that journey of meeting with people like Erica Shawada, who's a staff member in ethnic studies, with Amelia Castaneda, who's with Community for Excellence, with Penny Gonzalez Soto, who's been incredible in that work, Sylvia Martinez from Office of Financial Aid, Adam John Aparicio from the CSU Health Center. I started to see this story that each of those individuals are working 10 to 15 hours per week, serving and supporting those communities that I mentioned with no associated pay, with no mention in their job description, with no one person coordinating resources. It's kind of this advising ping pong where they send the student across to all of these different areas of campus, and it's not one person's job to manage that. Someone like Erica Shawada, who does spend about 15 hours a week from our conversation working on case management, on serving and supporting these students, on researching dense policy topics, on bringing context to situations like the Supreme Court case in Texas, the Texas Supreme Court case on DACA, and the life-changing implications that could have for students here at CSU. There was no one person whose job it was to house that information and communicate that information to students. And so that's where this vision was born. I took it to the Provost Financial Student Advisory Committee, sharing about exactly what those stakeholders have suggested is how about we have a position that coordinates and centralizes these resources. In that group, the Provost Financial Student Advisory Committee voted this #1 as their recommendation last year. We've been advocating for it for a little while now, and this is our opportunity to fund it. And I shared the vision with BSOF, and they supported the students that I've connected with as well as part of this journey are largely in support. It actually started because I was working with the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition on one of their advocacy efforts for Fort Collins to get an immigrant legal defense fund to close equity gaps in the legal system in Fort Collins. And throughout that whole process, I kept asking the question, who can I bring to these conversations? Who can I bring with me to this advocacy? When we were visiting with city council members in Fort Collins, when we were talking about the state policy that they're also passing to get an immigrant services fund, an immigrant legal defense fund at the state level, there was no one at CSU whose job it was to represent the students in those spaces. No one's job to be applying for grants with the Vera Institute or the Rose Foundation that give hundreds of thousands of dollars to institutions of higher ed to advance this equity work. We didn't have someone advocating for CSU students in those circles. So that's where the vision was born. And like I said, shared it with BSOF and they supported it. Our team is largely in support. And what you'd be voting on tonight is a couple of things. It would be the vote of confidence on BSOF's decision of $70,000. It would be vote of confidence on the ASCSU Office of the President and our $20,000. It would be $5,000 that's coming from this Senate discretionary, and then $31,000 dipping into the fund balance. And I want to mention that because, as I'm sure you all know, our fund balance is very healthy right now. It's our savings account. It's been funds that past students have given over time that have accumulated and have not been used. This is our unique opportunity to invest in programs and projects that impact students, just as I know those past students would have wanted when their student fees came to us. So that's the opportunity before you tonight. Anything that you would share, Emily?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Christian for your leadership on this. BSOF was very enthusiastic about supporting this. This feels like a very useful project for us to invest in. And we know, like the bill says, this will leave a legacy that will leave our campus better.
I'm happy to field any questions.
Yes, we will now enter question and answer period. Starting with the first raised placard.
I have a question for President Dixon. if I may.
Of course, yep.
Okay, I didn't know if y'all could hear me. So then how does, okay, so does, because I know this is just for the job itself, does it fall on the Office of Inclusive Excellence to provide funding for programming? I'm just kind of wondering that.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair question. So this bill would fund the position for 2 years, including fringe benefits, which is matches for 401k, coverage for insurance and other related costs that you have to include with a position like this. As far as the programming, that's an important question. I would say the programming and resources broadly are there, could certainly be bolstered. But what I've noticed is that it's a lack of coordination across those areas. And so in the sense of what programming would this individual have, I think out of the gates, not much. My hope is that that would grow over time. As I'm sure you all have seen, if you have a position that's dedicated to a cause under payroll, they're going to advocate for that cause to their director, who's then going to advocate to their director, and eventually it reaches the university president and the finance officer for CSU. So it's my hope that this position will advocate for that and can help bolster more programming. One example, I mean, I know the associated with MDOC United, they give a training on fostering cultural competency in academic advising and just general advising in higher ed. That's one example where the programming framework is there. The limiting factor is the payroll, is the staff member to actually give those trainings. And so this position could be instrumental in that. And that stakeholder group that I mentioned will define this job description based on Metro State University and what they've done incredibly well. I did meet with Metro State's Immigrant Services Program Coordinator as well as a part of this learning tour. Is that helpful, Kim? Senator?
Yes and no, but I feel like any further questions I have, I can field them to you directly.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the authors? Senator Rencher?
Like looking at the bottom and kind of the job description that you included, it mentioned like they'd be working directly with the students. Do we know like how the students would be connected with this director? And would it be like any student can go up and work with this person, and would they have the capacity to work with so many students?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So outlined in the job description for Metro State and what's mirrored in this bill is those 4 populations I mentioned: immigrant, refugee, undocumented, and English as a second language. And I know there's a lot of intersection across those, so that's a fairly broad net. Each of the stakeholders that I mentioned in my learning tour are connected to those circles of students and know where there's a limit on resources and where there's a lack of coordination, and would be able to connect those students directly with this individual. So this individual would be at a more strategic level for the university. That's something I needed to take to the committee who designs the job description of what is their role. My hope is that they would be a familiar face, a trusted person that students can go to. I'm asking the question that I did to the leadership of Undocumented as an example of where is this position housed. Ideally, it would be in the Laurie Student Center or in the Collaborative for Student Achievement, and factoring in elements of sensitivity and obviously recognizing that having it in a highly visible place where students can access it, but not too visible, like there's a balance there. And so we've definitely been working through those conversations. And I would say any student who could benefit from that type of work will hear about this position from each of those areas that I mentioned, from the health center, from student legal services, from the Department of Ethnic Studies, from the career center, from financial aid. They'll hear about it eventually. So,
are there any other questions for the authors? Oh, parliamentary clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for bringing this bill to the floor, President Dixon. My curiosity was just more on the process of where y'all wanted to see this legislation moved. Were you all hoping to expedite it tonight? Does this bill originate from BSOF and so it would only require 1 reading, or?
That's right. I would yield to the body on that. I will mention if there's intent text, but I would propose 2 clerical changes in the bill, which we could do on the floor, but I would yield that to the body.
Sorry, will you repeat that one time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for asking correctly, just to ask defer judgment in terms of expediting this bill over to Senate. So with that, I would motion to expedite this bill.
There has been a motion to expedite this bill. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All for expediting.
Point of information, it doesn't need a motion. It's been sponsored, I believe, by BSOF.
It has, but this bill did not, as far as what we can see, it can't tell really if it originated in BSOF.
It did, Mr. Speaker. So the motion actually would be, if there is no intent or motion to add a second reading, then it would automatically be expedited tonight. With that, I would like to make one clerical on the floor change, but.
Yes, President Dixon, please explain.
So just the first one, Kevin, if you could pull up the document.
Wrong bill.
And just for clarification, this legislation will just need one reading. All of the motions just made don't mean anything.
All right, so if you scroll down to the section on, and I didn't mention this, I can highlight it, but if you scroll down to the therefore clauses, some specific steps that I will be taking, keep going. The steps right there. So submitting a letter is, if you wouldn't mind putting bullet points, just so those three are separated out, that would be the first bullet point there. And then if you scroll down, there's a second bullet point. No, that's actually, that's part of the first one. Yeah, keep scrolling, designing a CSU job description. And then establish a formal search committee. In that letter, I would ask the university president to give this funding for the foreseeable future after this 2-year pilot program has elapsed. And then you can scroll down and do the same on the next section. Yep, that the funding is, that the hiring committee will be the first bullet point. One down. Yeah, and then after the individual selected, that's the second one, and then Office of Inclusive Excellence. And if you wouldn't mind, sorry, scrolling up as well, there's one clause that we have to strike. Somehow it got put in there twice. Keep scrolling down, it's in the therefores. It's for the fund balance specifically. You'll notice these two are identical and somehow got placed in there. So if you could just strike this second one with the approval of the body.
So Christian, can you clarify the fiscal year end date? We said FY26. Can we change it to June 30th, 2026?
Yep. Yep, that would work. It's clerical. It's virtually the same, right?
We just got asked by budgetary, yeah.
Okay. Request by budgetary for fiscal year 26 to be replaced with June 30th, 2026. All right. And then other than that, do we have to yield to the body to accept those, or since we're authors?
Can you delete the end of, so it just reads by June 30th?
Yeah, authorize.
By June 30th, a request to strike the end of.
Thank you. Are there any more changes? Seeing none, authors' rights will automatically apply these changes. And with that, we will enter discussion and debate on this piece of legislation, starting with the first raised placard. Seeing none, Senator Williamson.
I was gonna motion the previous question.
There's been a motion to previous question. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. We'll now move into voting period. This will be a placard vote. Please raise your placard, or all for passing bill number 5122. Please raise your placard.
Mr. Speaker, can I propose a roll call vote? Would that be accepted? Just for the stakeholders, I know it'd mean a lot to them to hear this.
Yeah, we can do this as a, is there a second?
Second.
All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. This will be a roll call vote. Will the Speaker pro tempore please call the roll?
Chair Ati.
Aye.
Senator Bildo.
Aye.
Senator Brown.
Aye.
Senator Burge.
Aye.
Senator Cadaceto Perez.
Aye.
Senator Correa.
I abstain.
Senator Deason.
Aye.
Senator Epperson.
Aye.
Senator Long. Aye. Senator May.
Aye.
Senator Nyberg,
Aye.
Chair Ritter,
Aye.
Senator Sandoval.
Aye.
Senator Shepherd,
Aye.
Senator Scherer, Chair Silverheart,
Aye.
Officer Torres Doxy,
Aye.
Senator Trout. Aye. Chair Welch,
Aye.
Senator Waller. Aye. Senator Williamson,
Aye.
Senator Sanchez,
Aye.
Senator Nguyen. Aye. Senator Rencher.
Aye.
Is there any senator or associate senator who is representing a senator I did not call upon? Associate Senator Emily Dora.
Aye.
With a vote of 19 to 0 to 2, this bill passes.
Thank you all. I really appreciate it. And I believe the next bill might be me as well, so I'll stick around.
So earlier we had moved resolution 5110 to right after this, so we'll do that now. We'll now move on to resolution 5110. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and abstract? I appreciate y'all for moving quick with us tonight. We have a lot to do, so I appreciate it.
Resolution 5110, supporting students in break housing. Abstract. This resolution seeks to recognize the progress between ASCSU, Rams Against Hunger, and the Housing and Dining Services towards food and housing security for CSU students who use break housing during the fall, the winter, and spring breaks. This will also act as an agreement between ASCSU, RAH, and HDS that all eligible students will have access to the RAH Meal Swipe program over the aforementioned breaks with the agreements outlined in the therefore clauses.
Are the authors present? Y'all may come down and present. Again, I would encourage y'all to keep it relatively quick if possible.
So for some background information, it costs $40 a day for students that decide to opt in to live on campus during the spring break, fall break, and winter break, of which $20 is spent towards rent cash that they may use to access on-campus dining facilities. $40 a day is quite expensive for various students, marginalized students with financial constraints, and because of these difficulties, this may create housing and food insecurity in them. So in order to support them, we've brought about, in collaboration with Rams Against Hunger, we've brought about the Rams Against Hunger Meal Swipe program that is now active and works during the fall, spring, and winter breaks. So this Rams Against Hunger Meal Swipe program has been expanded towards these breaks, and the Office of Financial Aid will provide the list and data of the students that are eligible for the Rams Against Hunger Meal Swipe program to Housing and Dining and Rams Against Hunger. They'll provide this data prior to each break. So before like a fall break, this data will be provided to Rams Against Hunger and Housing and Dining on how many students are eligible, their names, and prior to each break, Rams Against Hunger and Housing and Dining Facilities services should make sure that eligible students and also students in general are aware of this expansion of the Rams Against Hunger Meal Swipe program. Those students that are eligible and decide to opt in must be incorporated and accommodated within this program, no questions asked. Furthermore, Rams Against Hunger will ask, furthermore, to accommodate this meal swipe program, housing and dining services are requested to look upon potential ways through which they can reduce the costs of the meal swipes during the breaks. The ASCSU president will, in their next meeting where ASCSU has speaking rights with the Board of Governors, will advocate for the reduction of the cost of meal swipe during these breaks. The expansion of Rams Against Hunger Meal Swipe program should be enacted from 2022 to 2023 academic year, and the food security specialist will oversee the program and also any ways through which this program may take off. The housing and dining services will make sure to inform ASCSU on the number of eligible students, the number of students that decided to opt in, and also furthermore, the housing and dining services must provide ASCSU with the data on how many students decided to opt in for break housing starting 2022 and 2023, when this program has been implemented, alongside the data for the number of students that decided to opt in on break housing prior to 2022 and 2023. Yeah, this is the crux. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now open time for question and answer, starting with the first raised placard. Parliamentarian Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two questions for y'all. First, were you all planning on expediting this bill tonight?
Yes.
Okay. And then secondly, in the forwarding list, there is someone from financial aid, question mark. I was wondering if by any chance you all had figured out who that person might be.
No, we don't have that. We don't have the name of the person yet who does that. We know that the Meal Swipe program is organized and managed by somebody in financial aid who gives them the list of eligible students. And so we don't have the name of that individual. Obviously, Michael Butchman would, but yes, I do not. So I would say, I guess I would motion to strike that as Michael Butchman will be in communication with that individual on his own. In his own time, so it's you might be able to help us.
I think it is Mark Gluckstern.
Mark Gluckstern, that.
And I can spell it for you.
Yes, we would love that. Yes, with them, would we be able to make a motion to add Mark Gluckstern as one of the people that will be forwarded this legislation?
Since y'all are authors, y'all have authors' rights, and so you don't need a motion.
Cool. Then we would like to make that. We would like to make that addition to this bill. And would you be able to help us with that spelling?
Yep, so first name is
Can you use a microphone? Thank you.
First name is Mark, M-A-R-K. Last name Gluckstern, G-L-U-C-K-S-T-E-R-N.
And would his role just be the Office of Financial Aid?
Let's see if I've got a title here. I might have to look it up. You could just write Office of Financial Aid for now, I'm sure.
Yes, and we can make this change after as well, as long as Senate consents that this will be added. Authors have added it with this, unless, is that everything you needed to say, Parliamentarian Clark?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, with that I yield.
And there has been a motion to expedite this piece of legislation. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. With that, seeing no questions, we will now move into a period of discussion and debate.
I apologize. Can I make one more comment? So With the new job descriptions, is there, point of clarification, is there a food security specialist next year, director of food security?
So
if not, then I would I would ask that we edit that name to the new title that will be passed if it's passed.
So no job descriptions for next year have been passed yet. So, yes.
Could you explain that? Yeah. Should we maintain it as the food security specialist right now? Is that?
So, yeah, go ahead, Charity.
I believe that job description has been changed to director of basic needs.
That's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, could we change that title in just, I guess, to, I don't know, in preparation for that change? And if it doesn't happen, then we revert back to the basic needs coordinator or to the food security specialist.
I would advise that we stay with the legislation we're working in right now, as that hasn't been passed yet.
Okay,
The information the bill had director of kids community, which is a new title.
Okay.
We just passed that.
Okay, then, yeah, then that can be made. If y'all would like to.
Yes.
In a point of clarification, Deputy Director of Basic Needs.
Thank you. Yes, we would like to change then the food security specialist title of the director of food security to the deputy director of basic needs as the person who will oversee this.
Thank you.
Right here.
Yes, or in the above therefore clause that says that they will help oversee this process. So it'll be somewhere right around here.
I think over here, this one.
Yes, with the food security specialist overseeing. Yes, so we'll move that to the basic needs, to the deputy director of basic needs.
I'm sorry, I just gave wrong information. Mark just retired. So you might just want to put in there like representative from financial aid. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Great. Are there any other changes to be made?
Other than that one that was just mentioned that we would like to entertain, yes.
Thank you.
Exactly that.
Are there any other?
No.
Yep.
Perfect.
Are there any other points of discussion and debate? Seeing none, we will now move into a vote on this legislation. This will be a standard placard vote. All for. Sarah Williamson.
Motion to pass with unanimous consent.
There's been a motion to pass with unanimous consent. Is there a dissent? Seeing none, this resolution passes. Thank you. We'll now move on in our agenda to bill number 5124. Is there an author present? Advisor Johnson, would you possibly be able to pull out Christian?
Can I actually motion to look at the SCPS one next, because that way Christian can just stay here.
This is bill 5124 is the STPS. So, yeah. Yes, bill 5124. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and abstract?
Bill 5124, funding for SDPS offices. Abstract. This bill aims to distribute funding to the 7 offices within the student diversity programs and services sector in order to fund events and office improvements for the purpose of continuing to serve the growing populations of the community members they serve at CSU.
Is there an author present?
Yep.
You may come present.
Thank you. I also have 2 other authors present with me. Senator Carazado Perez is on Zoom as well, so they can interject if they'd like to. But anyway, hey y'all, my name is Charlie. I'm a senator for the Pride Resource Center. I use they, them pronouns. The idea behind this bill comes from a handful of STPS senators and representatives hoping to get some of the extra support that we have, financial support that we have to offer in Senate. So each office has, its own resources, but that kind of varies depending on the size and depending on what resources they can offer. And a really big part of what SDPS offices do is programming, outreach, recruitment and retention, and providing celebrations, whether that's welcome week stuff. We all table at Rare Welcome. We also all sometimes have independent graduation ceremonies or award ceremonies. And we want to make sure that that is able to happen and continue to happen. So we are proposing the use of $14,000 to go to the SDPS offices to help support them in that. Some offices, we want to leave it up to the discretion of the offices. That's important to us because each office may need different things. What the Pride Resource Center may need is not what the Student Disability Center may not need. It might not be what BAC needs. So we want to leave that up to the discretion of the offices and just show our support financially. Anything to add? Kim, anything to add?
Yes. Hi guys, my name is Kimberly Carrasco Perez. I'm Senator for Centro. First off, after all of this, any questions to any of us, you will get to see my cute dog pop up on the screen, so it's a plus. So for El Centro, what we would possibly be using these funds for, it is just, we have a bunch of school supplies that we offer to students every semester, and our welcome back falls in the same month of Latinx History Month. So being able to would be extremely beneficial. Any of the other senators to also just say what possibly it can be used for. At the end of the day, it's up to the offices to determine how they will use these funds. So I would just like to say that, and I am open to any questions whenever we move into that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the authors? Speaker Pro Tem Baum.
Hi, y'all. So looking at the abstract and your, I think, first therefore clause, would you be open for a friendly amendment just to include the money's amount into the abstract?
Yeah, sure.
With the author's approval, that will be added in. Will the parliamentarian please make that change? And this can be done also after this session. That's okay. Are there any other points of question? Senator Epperson.
Point of information, would your title, Senator Williamson, need to include your role as budgetary affairs?
Would it?
Because it's available on Chair APs as well. So her senator position and budgetary or internal affairs.
That's because I am a chair. It's usually the vice chair that they want to include that.
Yes.
Most of the vice chairs never include their titles in that. And I don't think that's why Charlie did.
I didn't know what the vice chairs did.
Yes, this can also be a change made in committee. Are there any other questions? Sorry, not to.
I yield, but thanks.
Yes. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thanks y'all. This will be sent to Budgetary Affairs and University Affairs. We will now move on to bill number 5125, approval of the 2022 to 2023 executive job descriptions. I did just read the title, but will the parliamentarian please read the abstract?
Bill 5125, approval of the 2022 to 2023 executive job descriptions. Abstract, this bill seeks to approve the 2022 to 2023 ASCSU executive job descriptions via a majority vote of the ASCSU Senate.
Thank you. Are there authors present? You may present.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? All right. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rob Long.
I'm the president-elect for ASCSU next year.
I'm Elijah Sandoval. I'm the vice president-elect.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, as I'm sure most of you know, the job description is 73 pages long. It's quite the read, so I don't expect everyone to know everything. So we'll just catch everyone up. But a few position changes that we've made. We've removed a couple, we've added a couple, and we've just kind of shifted around responsibilities. I know the first one that we made was Deputy Chief of Staff became Chief of State. Elijah, do you want to elaborate?
So okay, it's on, sorry. So in looking at the job descriptions of Deputy Chief of Staff and in talking with our current Deputy Chief of Staff, Taylor, we realized that there just wasn't a lot of work for the Deputy Chief of Staff to do. So what we did instead was we were looking at some of the things that they do, taking into consideration some of the things that Taylor had spoken to me about, and we made it their own position, and that is Chief of State. The Chief of State is also responsible for making sure that accurate information gets published within student media, because we all know that student media doesn't necessarily publish the most up-to-date accurate information. So we want to make sure that we are able to address that as it comes.
Perfect. And then moving on, another position that we added was Deputy Director of State Law and Policy. Just kind of to assist more with the U+2 fight that is going to continue on. And it'll be housed under governmental affairs and kind of help the Director of Governmental Affairs. Elijah, do you want to?
So this job will also work towards reading legislation, reading laws, reading policies within the state of Colorado, as well as within the city of Fort Collins. Yeah, Fort Collins is a city, sorry. Within the city of Fort Collins, and see if there's anything that we would be able to fight. Anything that is unfair, unjust, or just downright racist, like Rob said, the U+2. Another director position that was added that we had quite a few questions about is the Director of Zero Waste. And I would actually be, with the speaker's permission, be willing to yield to a member of the Zero Waste team to kind of explain what that job is.
Yep, you can come up here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sam Cummings. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm the president of the Zero Waste team. So over the past, I'd say 3 years, the Zero Waste team has been doing a lot of work to try to get more students paid on campus for their sustainability work. And this is one of the first steps that I think we've found is necessary to try to get that to be more of a trend on campus. So these Zero Waste team job descriptions currently fund 5 positions for the Zero Waste team officers to work to try to get more students paid for their sustainability work, as well as actively do sustainability work, sorting waste at events throughout around CSU to try to actively support sustainability in reducing our waste on campus as the Zero Waste team. We try to just like make sure that the waste that we do generate ends up in the correct places and can be more cyclical rather than just go straight to the landfill. So thank you.
And I would also like thank you. I would also like to note that we are in communications as well about discussing the 5 positions, whether that be 5, whether that be 1 or 2. That is something that is still in the works, but it is a new position nonetheless that we had a lot of questions about.
And then one more position that we added was Deputy Director of Finance. We believe that as we're coming out of COVID and as the travel grant has been used, being used more often, And also the stress that the current director of finance was under because due to a lack of a deputy director, we believe that it would be in the best interest to include it. I believe that was all the major changes. We made a couple of name changes that was stated up here. We split up graphic design and multimedia. And Elijah, if you want to.
Yeah, so Deputy Director of Graphic Design is pretty self-explanatory, is somebody who is very focused on graphic design, helping the Director of Marketing make all of the marketing materials, because we know our Director of Marketing right now is super awesome, but also very overworked and under a lot of time constraints, and she is one person. So we thought maybe talking with her, we thought that adding 2 more people to the marketing department would be better. So that way one person isn't under all of the stress. Deputy Director of Multimedia would work with the Chief of State to, again, ensure that correct and accurate information is going out. But then they would also work on the ASCSU Instagram. So not only promoting activities within ASCSU, but also promoting like, hey, we have Senate seats open, come and join, or talk to your colleges, or we have cabinet seats that are open, or we have, this is what Judicial is working on, this is what Senate's working on, just making sure that students are kept up to date, and also going off of the transparency pillar that Rob and I had ran on. Another one is Deputy Director of Basic Needs, and that replaces the Deputy Director of Health, but with a focus in basic needs and also a focus in mental health and mental wellness. Like Rob said, there's a couple of name changes. So like Director of Campus Community is Director of Campus Engagements. Academic Relations is Director of Academics. Just changes in job names that we thought were more appropriate, more accurate to describe what they do. Deputy Director of Sustainability, which is just basically the Deputy Director of Environmental Affairs, but again, more focused on sustainability and going to be working with the Director of Zero Waste. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We'll open it to,
We will now enter a period of question and answer, starting with the first raised placard. Senator Trout.
Hey y'all, so I'm a little confused as to exactly what the difference between Deputy Director of Sustainability and what the Director of Zero Waste would be doing. From what I've already read, it looks like they're doing a lot of the same job. And so I'm just a little confused as for the necessity of it, if that makes sense.
yeah, and that's I can't really answer that right now, I'm not gonna lie, but that is an ongoing conversation that we will have with the committees.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Correa.
Yes, so I had a question. Why do we have a Director of Environmental Affairs and a Director of Zero Waste? Shouldn't that come under like a Deputy Director of Zero Waste that would work under the Director of Environmental Affairs?
And that is an ongoing conversation that we are having. So hopefully but by the next reading, by next Senate session, we will have all of these questions answered.
Senator Deason.
I'd like to yield to Adam Vance.
Director Vance. Yep.
Yes, I still have a question because I did not yield. So under Chief of State, you said something about they would collaborate with media outlets to promote what ASCSU does, but shouldn't that come under the Director of Marketing instead?
So we wanted the Director of Marketing to focus on internal affairs of ASCSU. The Chief of State would focus on the external affairs.
Would you be able to elaborate a little bit more on it?
I guess I'm confused as to your question. What do you mean elaborate? Like what specifically are you asking?
So I didn't quite get when you said the internal and the external aspects of it.
Okay, so external aspects would be like CTV, the Collegian, KCSU, the radio station, the, CSU memes, just all of the external social medias that are not ran by CSU or ASCSU, my apologies. Director of multimedia would control the internal. So like the ASCSU Instagram. I know Senate has an Instagram account, but we would be working with the speaker, the incoming speaker on that. If that is something that he wants to place within the Deputy Director of Multimedia. So things like that.
Okay, sweet. Thank you. I yield.
Director Vance was yielded to earlier, but during Q&A, I would ask that you stand behind the gallery just because you're not an author. But you, if you would take the handhold mic.
Point of information, Mr. Speaker. Point of information, there are 30 minutes left in the conference clock.
Thank you.
I stay back here.
Yes,
Okay.
so behind the gallery, thank
Extend
you.
the conference clock by an hour, because I think that's the maximum.
There's been a motion to extend the confidence clock. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. The confidence clock will be extended by 1 hour. Director Vance.
Yes, I would just like to clarify the creation of the zero waste team positions and truly just the positions added to what seemingly is the umbrella of the Environmental Affairs Department. I would just like to clarify that in the grand scheme or the broader picture, the Environmental Affairs Director moving forward would be looking to create a SFRB based on sustainability and compensating students for their time in terms of manual labor and time spent at our university, either waste sorting or participating in environmental events. With the broader idea of really creating an infrastructure based on ASCSU to compensate students for the time, work, and everything that they give to our university. This would not be a permanent house. I do not foresee ASCSU being the place that students come to get compensated for their time, but rather creating the infrastructure right now for students to, for this conversation to be held and for the future of students being compensated for their time. I yield.
Senator Deason, do you yield your time?
No, I have an additional question. So from what I understand, the chief of staff position or the deputy chief of staff position is being changed into chief of state. I understand that was a conversation you had with the current deputy chief of staff. Did you have that conversation with the current chief of staff, Carter Ryder? And why do you think it's necessary to change up? Because I think chief of staff has quite a bit of responsibilities, and I'm curious why you think it's necessary to divert those responsibilities and essentially push more onto the chief of staff. Thank you.
So I did reach out to Carter. I have not heard anything back. I'm assuming because it's the end of the semester, everybody is busy. But I'm willing to continue these conversations through the second readings, or not second readings, I apologize, through committee. And those are definitely changes that can be made. We weren't trying to push any more work onto the current chief of staff or the upcoming chief of staff. We were actually trying to split up those duties. So that way the chief of staff was not so overwhelmed with the current job duties, hence chief of state. So that way they still have the authority, the P card training, things like that. It's just a different name.
That answers my question. I yield.
Are there any other questions? Chair Athey?
Sorry, I'm going back to the director of zero waste. How is the director of zero waste with the zero waste team in this instance different from any RSO that wants to coerce incoming administration into a paid position?
I yield to Adam Vance or the Sam Cummings, either one of you.
I believe that this is.
Use the microphone.
I believe that this is an important piece in ASCSU helping out students to be compensated for their time. It obviously comes from a sustainable lens due to the work that I have been involved in. Also with extensive tries of trying to figure out how to compensate these students for their time, pursuing different RSO options, trying to get them entitled as a living lab to compensate them for their times. time and work. I just have not found any infrastructure that exists within our university that accurately compensates students for their time. Zero waste team members have had to jump through hoops in terms of getting on athletics payroll for all of the work that they do. They attend every single athletic event and waste sort all of their events. They do educational and consulting opportunities as well within our university. I just believe that this is a necessary step in one, broadly compensating students for their time, but through my specific lens with the people that I've worked with throughout my time within ASCSU, this is just a necessary step, I believe, in compensating students for their time.
Chair APD yield.
I don't, but you probably shouldn't have taken the microphone back, sorry. It's okay, I like it. So while I agree that students should be compensated for their time, I want to know how it's different than, say, the Apiculture Club or other RSOs that are dedicated to change on campus that are gonna, because ASCSU can't create a director position for all of those different groups that are dedicated to change. How is this gonna be really a different position than the Director of Sustainability and the, Director of Environmental Affairs and Deputy Director of Sustainability? Like, how is this so different from any other RSO that could say, hey, we're doing work on campus, we deserve to be paid?
Yeah, I would first like to address, I believe that this is a different group. They have donated, over 400 hours of their time collectively just through the initiative that my department has brought forward of bringing permanent composting to the LSC. And, while I agree that, this would set a precedent for other RSOs to come forward and say, hey, why are we not getting paid? This is also an obvious step in my mind to opening up that conversation and inviting other students and organizations to get paid and compensated for their time. So I have not seen a direct avenue, opportunity, or infrastructure created at CSU that would compensate students for their time. I would hope that the future environmental affairs director, specifically within the job description, will work towards creating an SFRB that does compensate students for their time, really directed specifically to sustainability, since that is the department that I am in, with the future hope that is more broadly brought to our university. But this is in my mind, necessary first step in the conversation of having students compensated for their time, involving a club and organization that I believe truly deserves it.
Are there any other questions for the authors? Associate Dorak?
Close enough, I'll take it. My question, I guess, I'm also jumping back a little bit to what you talked about. You mentioned a position that would handle internal, social media, like the Instagram account and other such accounts. And correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we already have a position that does that? So would this be making two of that or getting rid of that? To my knowledge, I don't think we have. Question, do we have somebody like that now? I yield to President Dixon.
And can you repeat your question again? You were asking about social media specifically.
Yeah, it was mentioned that we would have a person for internal media and a person for external media. Don't we already have somebody who runs that internal media, the Instagram, oh my goodness, the Instagram account and whatnot?
Right, that's right. I can't speak to the position specifically, but we do. Her name is Grace Kringle, Director of Marketing, who manages all of that.
Okay. Cool. So I guess off of that, my question was, with this new position that you're proposing, would that be two people in that position or getting rid of that current position and giving that to this new position? So it would be, it wouldn't be like we're not getting rid of Director of Marketing. But we have seen with Grace, the fact that she is very overwhelmed, that Instagram isn't updated as much as we would like it. Just in talking with fellow senators, it's not updated a lot. So with Deputy Director of Multimedia, they would be solely in charge, well, along with other things, but their main duties would be in charge of that Instagram. So whether that's updating it every day, every other day, going to the events that we have on campus, whether that's athletic events like football games, basketball games, volleyball games, ASCSU events, like Day at the Capitol, Eyeball, things like that. They would be with us documenting what is going on. So director of marketing would be in charge of like the marketing things, like making orders to fast print to make sure that those get done in a timely fashion, or, you know, making, if needed, making Instagram things like that. But it would be the director of multimedia who would be doing that.
Okay, cool, thank you. I yield my time.
Senator Williamson.
Yeah, so this, I'm gonna try and phrase it as a question. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it as a question, but jumping back to Director of Zero Waste again, my apologies. We talked about this a little bit in committee, but it's also kind of a question because I know that we have people in the space, so I would love to pick your brain about it. So my concern is, if it's a director role, it gets put on handshake with all of the other jobs. And so there wouldn't be any guarantee that the person hired as the director of zero waste would come from the zero waste group, is my concern. So I guess, would you expect that that job went to somebody? And if there isn't 5 positions, if that's the amount of leadership you have, then how would you decide who would get that paid position up front?
Yeah, so in talking with Sam and Adam, we did bring this to their attention that, hey, they're like, they can apply, but there's no guarantee that they're going to be the only ones applying. We told them, we made it very clear that if other students apply, whether they're a part of zero waste or not, we will interview them and we will treat them like we would treat any other candidate across the board, consistently. They understand that they are taking that risk with having it as a job position on handshake. And, you know, we hope that it's someone from zero waste, but they understand that there's no guarantee. Good.
Cool.
Okay. I yield to Sam Cummings.
I think in the interest of equity, I think that it is great that they're put on handshake. And even if the person who was hired was not from the zero waste team, we would definitely embrace someone who has that level of knowledge and experience in zero waste as a great addition to our team to make CSU more sustainable.
Thanks, I yield.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, these will be sent to all 3 committees. Thank you. We'll now move on to bill number 5126. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and abstract? Yes, 1 second. And just to make y'all aware, we are currently at 8:22. So in 10 minutes, any extra time y'all stay count towards office hours. And I appreciate y'all staying as late as you can. The parliamentarian, please read the title and abstract.
Bill 5126, changes to the elections manager job descriptions. Abstract, changes to the elections manager job description and subsequent responsibilities.
Thank you. Is there an author present?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
You may present.
Hi, y'all. So this was basically just some changes that I recognized maybe needed to happen after this year's fuss with the elections manager. So currently how it is you can hire the elections manager at any point. It doesn't have to be before fall break. It has to be before fall break. They just have to be ratified. So I just want to make it so that this person is hired in the summer along with the associate justices, and 2, that they are like a full-time, almost like a director position. They run a whole like subsection of a branch, which is really intense. So that's something that I wanted their pay to reflect as we talk about cost of living and such. And then another change that we're looking at, or that we're hoping to have changed, is moving away from GPA requirements Thank you so much for highlighting that. The judicial branch as a whole is hoping to move away from those. I know Slice recently did, so we're hoping to kind of mirror what they did and really get rid of those. I think that was, adding maybe a few things in the job task and responsibilities that would reflect that extra pay increase. Yeah, I think that's kind of it.
Thank you. We will now enter Q&A, starting with the first raised placard, Senator Trout.
Hello. So I'm a little confused as to why within the job descriptions it is changed to be in the fall and spring semesters. Why you believe it's necessary for the fall? I understand the spring semester because that's when things start to pick up. But for the fall semester, I'm a little confuzzled.
Yeah, absolutely. So currently the way it is the election manager is ratified by fall break. The reason that I wanted to add the fall semester is to give them more time. Frankly, this position is a huge burnout, and I'm sure you could ask anyone who's been in the position. Gemma especially is recognized as, she had 4 weeks, so she's maybe a little bit more of an outlier. But Morgan May worked her tail off during winter break to make this happen, and that's not really fair to her. She had a break that she had to use to work to make sure that the elections manager position happened effectively. So giving them that fall break would, one, allow them more time to do things like ranked choice voting, plan media, work with the collegian to create content for that upcoming spring, and make changes to the election code. Because what happens now is the elections code is changed in the fall when everyone has the steam. It's usually around like the week before winter break. And then they are just burnt out so much when elections roll around that they don't have the energy to change that elections code in time for the next year. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that answered it. Thank you. I yield, Speaker.
Are there any other questions for the authors? Seeing none, thank you, Chief Justice Freeman. This will be sent to all 3 committees as well. We will now move on to bill number 5127. Will the parliamentarian please read the title and the abstract?
Bill 7, support for vehicle purchase, revamping transportation services for CSU's disabled community. Abstract, this bill will invest $50,000 towards the purchase of a new or high-quality used vehicle that can serve the needs of CSU's disabled community, namely those with mobility challenges. This bill will earmark $50,000 in ASCSU funding with the hope of receiving a 45 to 50% match from other campus entities to purchase an ADA outfitted vehicle that will address this critical need within our community.
Thank you. Is there an author present? President Dixon, you may present.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So I'll start with a story, if that's all right. I know we're getting late here, but I was meeting with a friend of mine who has some mobility challenges and was telling me about issues that he's experienced on campus, getting between classes and across campus, going from Aspen Hall to the business college, going from Aspen Hall to Stadium, going from Aspen Hall to Clark, all around campus, and describing this story of by the time he gets home, completely spent on energy, and wondering why did that program go away? We used to have a program that helped disabled students with transportation. And there were some issues, granted, there were some concerns with continuity and staffing, with the reliability of the service. Some students that have shared multiple hours after classes that the vehicles showed up. And then of course the vehicle broke down. So all of those challenges compounded, and the program does not exist currently. This would help bring it back. This would help purchase a vehicle and kickstart that process. As a part of that learning tour, I've been in contact with Justin Dove, the director of the Student Disability Center. Actually, if you could add him as an endorser as well. He just recently emailed me to this bill, that'd be wonderful. I met with him as well as folks over at Parking and Transportation. I think they both bring unique skill sets, Parking and Transportation on the operational side, and then Student Disability Center on the case management and the more relational side, as well as the staffing component. And so they're in the midst of a partnership right now. Justin reached out yesterday and said that they are able to fulfill that match. So if we put forward $50,000, they will put forward at least $45,000, between 45 and 50. Which will fully cover the purchase of the vehicle. I advocated in the bill that if you go down to the bottom here, that we consider a few factors. Proposals that can provide a vehicle in less than 6 months, which is critical. Vehicles with competitive total mileage, vehicles that can be serviced in northern Colorado and not other parts of the state or even country, which is the case with some of the vehicles that are on the market. Vehicles with competitive fuel economy, and then vehicles with the maximum number of accessible features. I met with Michelle over at Frontier Access and Mobility, who services these exact vehicles, who provides them. She could get it to us in, I think she said 8 to 10 weeks at a competitive price point. It would be a brand new vehicle. There's also options for used vehicles with all of the features. I've actually got a pamphlet in my office if you want to look at the cars. So anyway, this will kickstart the process, and I'm happy to open it to questions. And there have been many others who are involved. So yeah, Ariane. Charity.
Sure.
I just want to quickly add that Justin has been working on this project for a while and is having to kind of hit a standstill because he doesn't have a ton of support for it outside of the SCC. And so I fully endorse this thing because this really is happening. That's all I have. Thanks.
Any further questions? I yield back to the chair.
Are there any other questions for the author? Senator Correa.
Yes, so, sorry, yeah, so there were issues earlier that I heard about with this particular vehicle, that most students who wanted to access this vehicle couldn't access it given the sheer volume of students needing it. How do you all plan on mitigating that issue?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, Justin, Director Dove with the Student Disability Center would be the best person to answer that. My guess is that there would be some prioritization mechanism for students, individuals. Yeah, Charity, feel free to jump in.
Justin has been working on trying to get a pro staff member driving this vehicle, which previously it was run by students, which is great to have students running the thing. But as Christian mentioned, it meant that you would get to your class 6 hours after your class was over, and that's not helpful. And the SCC has gotten really good at figuring out scheduling to make sure that people are able to access their accommodations, and so they would be able to work with students who are going to need this van to organize their classes so that they would have access to this van.
Okay, sweet, thank you, I yield.
Are there any other questions for the author? Parliamentarian Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, President Dixon. Just wondering really quickly, what was the name of the person that you were seeking for that endorsement?
Justin Dove, D-O-V-E.
Okay.
Director of the Student Disability Center.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I yield.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. This piece of legislation will be sent to Budgetary and University. We'll now move into our final piece of legislation in our docket, Bill number 5128, approval of the I'm gonna let the parliamentarian read the title and abstract.
I can pull it out.
Got a little excited.
All right. Bill 5128, approval of the 2022 to 2023 ASCSU budget. Abstract, a bill to approve the 2022 to 2023 ASCSU budget.
Sounds great. Is there a author present? Y'all may present.
All right, can everyone hear me? Now can everyone hear me? All right. So I'm sure everyone in this space is aware of the budget. It's probably the most debated topic in the Senate right now. But I'm here to clarify things. We're both here to clarify things. First line item that is probably the most controversial is raising all ASCSU. Well, first of all, one thing in the budget that I wanted to outline that was incorrect was under the payroll. The legislative pay is currently in the works. The wrong numbers were put in. So we're working with the budgetary committee to hash through those numbers and ensure that they're at 15% raise from before. But anyway, so regarding the 15%, we felt that, we both looked at the job descriptions. We've both seen since 2018, 2019, there has been absolutely zero raises in anywhere, I don't think, and not at least an exec. And we feel that with the increased cost of living, and especially in recent history, that it's about time that we need to address this issue. It's really challenging right now, especially, in ASCSU, because, I remember talking to a lot of past administrations and they're like, oh yeah, a director used to be a single job. If you only had one job, you were the director. But now, a lot of these directors, they have two jobs just to support their college living. And, I feel like it's I feel like we're a little behind the times right now. And, it's a little, it is a controversial, of course. But I feel like it's necessary if we want to stay competitive, if we want to have disadvantaged individuals to come into this space. We need to be competitive. We need to make sure that they have a voice here and that they don't have to seek for a job elsewhere that has higher pay. And so that was kind of the biggest line item, I believe. Some of the projects that we're looking through the job description, some of the projects that we're planning on doing, we're going to hash those through budgetary committee to ensure that those are included in the budget as well. But yeah, that's what else was there. But at the moment, we went to SFRB and we gave a presentation to them. And the revenues at the moment are just projections because we don't have solid numbers for what enrollment's going to look like in the fall. But it's a conservative investment. A conservative estimate. But yeah, that's kind of an overarching view of it. I'm here to answer any questions. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of them, but I will answer them to the best of my ability.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the authors? Chair Welch.
All right, so basically my question is, so this was printed SFRB, maybe VSOS and this. So are we voting on it or how does, or is this what SFRB is doing? Is that different than what we're doing?
So SFRB was just simply a presentation. There was no vote, and similar to VSOP, there was no vote.
But we're gonna be voting on it Monday.
So, sorry, with SFRB, we had to go to present because we are a student fee area. And we had to go to present just to basically say that we are not raising our student fees. So with SFRB, how it normally goes though, there's a vote of legitimacy and then there's a vote to a final approval. So SFRB approves whether or not we raise the student fees or decrease the student fees. Here, y'all are voting we'll be voting when we come back next week to finalize the budget so we can move forward with hiring our cabinet and the 52nd Senate.
All right, thank you. And yeah,
Are there any other questions for the authors? Senator Correa.
Yes, I just had one question. So there seems to be a substantial, actually more than substantial raise in the pay for Speaker Pro Tempore, Parliamentarian Recruitment and Retention Officer, and the committee chairs. Would y'all be able to specify why such? I think it's almost 100% increase, if I'm not wrong. Could y'all justify the increase, please?
You are not wrong, and it was, as Rob stated before, that what the numbers were inputted wrong. So we are going to be working with budgetary to make sure that they are the correct numbers.
Okay, so thank you. I yield.
Are there any other questions for the authors? President Dixon.
Yeah, I just wanted to check in. So I'm looking at ASCSU working budget -Sandoval_long. That's the right document,
Yes.
right? If you could just speak to your hopes in continuing some of these projects. I noticed a lot of them are similar to last year. Most are actually similar to last year. So things like the ongoing U+2 work, the Graduate Affairs Department, just some of those examples of why you kept it, which obviously I'm in support of it staying consistent with this year because I think the projects have been really meaningful, but just help me understand what the next iteration would be of some of those categories.
Well, in case you have any other questions, do you have any other questions after this one? Okay, I'll just take it. So we are doing things like the Ramsey Stress Events, SA Awareness Fund. And I say SA because I'm personally not comfortable with saying the name. Things like the day or days at the Capitol. And then just a bunch more that I cannot name off the top of my head. But like I said, because this is a working budget, Rob was out for about a week and we were under a time constraint, and I sent it in thinking that I had to get it in right away.
And like I stated before, we're going to be working with budgetary to ensure that the projects within the job description are allocated within the budget.
Do you have any more questions, Christian?
Thank you, Senator Trout.
Also, in terms with the pay increase, was housing something that y'all considered, especially living in Fort Collins? That's something that y'all considered when you were putting in these numbers?
So personally, I do not live in Fort Collins. I live in Loveland, but Rob lives in Fort Collins, and we had talked to a lot of other students who are living on campus. And we found that with the increase of the director's pay, it would literally pay for a 1 month of rent, which any of you who have had to struggle with paying rent, that's one less thing that will have to worry about if you apply for this director position. Rent on campus average is about $700 a month. And with the director pay, it comes out to about $851. And like I said, that's literally 1 month of rent that a student won't have to worry about, or a few months of rent while they're in the position that a student won't have to worry about.
Yeah, and then I'm guessing additionally there'd be groceries or other expenses that, come up out of, life. So I'm really glad that y'all are thinking about your future cabinet and them being able to focus on this job. Personally, I know a lot of people who want to get involved, but they can't make the time commitment because it doesn't pay enough for the bills. And unfortunately, we need to prioritize that. So I really appreciate y'all for that. And for that, I yield.
Are Officer Torres Doxley?
Yeah, so what's the plan to make sure that there's a university-wide change to make sure that everyone is paid equitably, not just people in ASCSU who are paid by student fees?
We can't promise a university-wide change. We can only promise a ASCSU-wide change. But we also hope that in meeting with President McConnell and meeting with all the leadership that we will be privileged to be able to meet with, we can tell them, hey, this is what we're doing within ASCSU, and they will follow suit. Because what we want to do is we want to make ASCSU more equitable to all. Because as it stands right now, people who are working 2 jobs can't take the pay cut to come into this space and have their voices heard. They are not able to, like students with families are not able to take that pay cut to be in this space. So we hope that we run as a model for the rest of the university and say, hey, this is what students are needing. What can we do to make that happen?
Are there any other questions? Senator May?
I was wondering if you could just tell us your plan for making sure that if there is a pay increase, that these positions are actually held accountable for the work that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking at implementing something like a 4-strike policy, 3-strike policy, my bad. 3-strike policy. The first violation will be something like a warning, like just like a, like just basically confronting the person in person, just say, hey, like, what do you need to fulfill your job duties? What can we do to help improve your efficiency and responsibilities here? The second sort of violation would be like a written warning, just like basically involving Jess and Jesse or whoever the other advisor might be. Just kind of the next step in that process to, hey, what can we do to help you? What can we do to ensure that you're filling your job duties to the best of your ability? And then the third violation will be a sort of like asking for a resignation. And yeah.
And is there a plan in place to make sure that this policy that you've outlined is actually going to be in effect when these people are hired?
Yes, and also just wanted to go back to what Rob said real quick, and then I can answer your question as well. We want to make sure that we are meeting not these people, I apologize, our cabinet, our members with grace and hearing their reasonings and then making decisions based on that. So if by the 3rd strike, we feel like they are just not doing their job because they disappeared off the face of this planet, then yes, we will ask for a resignation. But if they are just falling on some really hard times, then we will meet with them, see what we can do, work with our advisors, and even see if there's a way that if there's a need for them to step down for the rest of the semester to make sure that they get their health in order, whatever it may be. The plan to make sure that this is implemented when we hire a cabinet is Rob and I are meeting to discuss our interview questions, and we are going to make it very clear to each member that we interview. These are the consequences of not doing your job. Because you are being paid, you need to earn your pay. And these are the consequences of that. With that being said, is we are also going to meet during the summer to kind of outline like an exact, this is what we see as like a 1st strike, a 2nd strike, a 3rd strike warrant a resignation. And we would be more than happy to come to the 52nd Senate and share that with you once we get that. And we're going to be documenting it. So that way Rob and I can look back, whether that's in a spreadsheet, email, whatever, Rob and I can look back and see, okay, how many times have we met with this individual? What needs to be the course of action? But then also leaning on those who know more than us.
Okay, thanks. And one more question. Could you just speak a little bit to what this, like increasing this pay and spending so much money internally to raise people's pay, what the impact would be on the broader campus community and spending these student fees in a way that's going to benefit the student body and not just people who are internal to ASCSU?
So with the increase of the student pay comes an increase of work. And that's why because we did add a couple more bullet points to each job description, and that's why we felt like an increase of pay was necessary. So like we can make sure that we're being active and out there with the students with whatever event we have going on. Plus, the money that does not get used of the 22%, that threshold, just goes back into the fund balance. The same fund balance that has over $1 million in, and it just sits there. it doesn't roll over. So what we're able to do is we're able to take this money, increase it, but then also work with our cabinet to see what events that they want to put on, what do they want to do, write a bill to access that fund balance and possibly, well, not possibly, but work to bring it down with the budget that they are allotted, that Rob and I are working on with budgetary, and just with whatever projects that they want to do.
Okay, thank you. I yield my time.
Chair
Pulling a card from Senator Mazie Hirano of the U.S. Senate. Is it accurate that you have worked with advisors like Pamela Norris to ensure equity, confidentiality, and humanity into your accountability process, and that you intend to implement this accountability into the job descriptions of your committee to allow for input from the entire Senate?
That is accurate.
Thank you. Also, are you aware of the fact that no increase has been implemented in payroll since before 2018, and that if a 3 to 4% increase was implemented across the board, as is normal for paid employees on campus each year, that it would be equivalent to the 15% increase that is being implemented?
We are aware.
Thank you. I yield.
Are there any other questions? Senator Burge.
So I'm sure, and I'm sorry, I missed the first half of the question, so if this is redundant, please make that known. Back to the idea of, or to the concept of equity, as discussed earlier with this pay increase. How do we ensure that this just doesn't look like a student government that's had a, in my opinion, a very tough year, trying to kind of bring itself out of the ashes, and say to the student body that we deserve this, even though, you know, we've had a tough year. How does that speak to all of the housing and dining employees and all of the CSU employees who are stuck at a $12.56 hour wage, which is lower than, from what I understand, what we're getting paid here at ASCSU. How does that, how can we bring equity through that by making this pay raise? I yield.
Absolutely, and that's a brilliant question. You know, we're the student government, and we believe that if we implement a pay increase like this, we can set an example to administration, we can set an example to LSC and say, oh, hey, like, you know, these people are getting paid, you know, $14, $15 an hour, why aren't we? And then, you know, we really just set that example. And yeah, just addressing that. That's kind of the whole thought behind it, is that, like, you know, we're really setting an example when we do this fee increase. And with that, we also believe that, because there's been some countering opinions to this, like, oh, why don't we just create a director that solely focuses on, like, raising the hourly rate for, you know, whether it be LSC employees, whether it be dining hall employees, and all the students employed by CSU. And we just felt that it would be more useful to do a hourly rate or a salary increase, would be more useful than creating a position like that would be solely used to delegate with the university for the hourly rate increases. Yeah.
Director Ballard.
So first want to start with.
Would you use a microphone?
All right, so first want to start with point of information. This budget will go to committee following tonight. All right, beautiful. Okay, so a couple of clarifying questions. Number one, so I've been around in this organization and seen some highs and lows. Historically, when last winter, when when pay for executive branch tried to happen, there was a lot of backlash, both inside Senate, but also from a lot of external stakeholders, including the Collegian and including a lot of stuff on social media. Do you have a plan on how to communicate this race to the student body and in a way that's communicates your intent for equity? I'm just really concerned about potential backlash from this action.
I yield to Chair Ethy.
I just want to share my perspective really quick on why I see that this is different than the winter break bill. My concerns specifically with the winter break bill, I was a senator at the time, was that those job descriptions had already been approved and people had already applied for those jobs and had been filling those roles and had agreed to that pay. And in this instance, these job descriptions, like each administration gets to create their own jobs every year. If they technically, they copy and paste, but they're creating the jobs every year. And so they're starting off at the front with an increased pay, but they're not asking for more pay down the line. They're agreeing to it at the beginning. And so it doesn't seem as correct to me because it's not, oh, I'm liking my cabinet, so I'm going to pay them more. It's, I'm planning that my cabinet is going to be doing all of these things, and this is what I feel is fair pay. I yield back to the Alex.
Thank you. I think that makes a lot of sense. My other question is, I had some thoughts on, like ASCSU can set the standard and the rest of campus can follow. My only concern is a lot of these student employees work for fee-funded areas. So in order to pay them more, it would result in raising student fees. Have you thought through that? And, in order to raise wages for hourly employees that work for fee-funded areas, have you thought through, if that's our intent, how maybe you're going to work through that? And is that raising student fees, or is that exploring other ways to get those wages funded?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we don't want to raise we don't want to raise student fees to the best of our ability. We want to talk to administration because this is kind of out of our hands a lot, but we want to talk to administration about this. We want to communicate with the people that are responsible with these fee-funded areas, and while trying to increase the hourly rate for these workers, also trying to not raise student fees as much. Honestly, we're going to be communicating with the administration, people responsible for this, but yeah.
And being that being vice president, I do have the honor of serving on BSOP, or not BSOP, that is your thing, that is director of finances thing, serving on SFRB. So I will be able to be in communication with the directors of the fee-funded areas and see what is stopping them from raising their student worker hourly wage, what we can do as ASCSU to help them. And like I said before, the reason why we decided to raise a wage is also because we have an absurdly amount in our fund balance. And we thought that with raising the wages, with adding more job duties onto the job descriptions, we would be able to produce more bills that might go into the fund balance and say, hey, we want to revamp the Rams de-stress week. We want to make it twice a semester or twice a year, once every semester, and instead of once a year. We want to do something fun for Ram Welcome. So just things like that. And these are ongoing conversations that Rob and I plan on having, and it's not just something that we thought like, hey, it'll be fun. It was something that we thought would come out of equity and inclusion.
I have one last question. Oh my God. Of course, I appreciate you answering them. Okay, last question. And I also want to preface this with, I am not against raising wages. I know I work 3 jobs, so I am very aware that it's really tough to pay rent in Fort Collins and pay tuition. So I want to start with, I understand that. My last question is, what have you done to engage the student body and maybe get some feedback on raising executive wages? In my mind, I think that would be very unpopular with students, but I'm curious if there's been any outreach and to get outreach from diverse backgrounds as well.
I'm just gonna stay up there instead of walking. No, you're good. So one of the things that I have been doing is I have been reaching out to the SDPS offices and talking to the directors and holding meetings and saying, what can we do to get more diverse students into the space? And that was, excuse me, that was their number one thing, is students are not in this space because they cannot afford to be. Rob and I, when we were campaigning out on the plaza, we were able to talk to a lot of students, and we did ask them, like, hey, what would make ASCSU better? What would make you want to be in the space? And they said, again, that they just can't afford to be because the pay is so low. We're working with the Alumni Association to make sure that senators have some sort of compensation at the end of the semester. That's an ongoing conversation that, like, literally we came from like earlier today, and they love the idea because, alums, they want to see their school succeed. So these are conversations that we have had since we started campaigning, since, Rob and I decided to start running, and even before then too. So.
I have one question to that.
I'll just stay up here.
Just meet in the middle. So maybe this is a point of information, but is there a reason that you decided to raise executive wages instead of giving some sort of financial compensation to senators?
Yes, there is. So I'm sure that all of you know, getting senators paid has been an ongoing argument. I have spoken to Jess about it. I've spoken to Jesse about it, to the point where they have sent me upstairs to Pamela Norris because they just don't want to continue to hear the same question and the same reasoning over and over again. Because Senate works differently than legislative and judicial and executive, certain senators in this space are here as representatives from their college. Their college, like School of Business, votes, or College of Business, votes their senators into the space. If we were to pay our senators, which in a perfect world, I would love to do, we would love to do, but that takes away, if there's an issue with a certain senator within a certain school of business, or a certain school, sorry, not school of business, but a certain school, that takes away that school's ability to remove the senator because they are now an employee of LSE or ASCSU. So only ASCSU would be able to remove them. So it takes away that power, that, what's the word I'm looking for, that it takes away that ability for that college, which is why we've had this ongoing conversation. Now, there are some SDPS offices that pay their students to be here as student employees, and that's their prerogative. They can do that, but not all SDPS office does that. And it would not be fair if some SDPS offices do it, some don't. Colleges aren't able to do it because they would have to be hired through that college, not through ASCSU, and it's just a big mess. So we thought the most equitable way to go about it was to work with the Alumni Association and present this. Our plan is to work with them, present a student with an award at the end of the semester that says you completed X amount of Senate sessions, you did your due diligence, you followed your job description, here's a reward for your time. So it's an ongoing conversation that.
2 minutes left, Q&A remaining, please continue.
Rude. It's an ongoing conversation that is one that has been had for years, even before mine and Rob's time here.
Motion to, I see you coming. Motion to exhaust the speakers list after you get the break.
Speaker of the Senate, Hunter.
You have to do my motion.
Motion to exhaust the speakers list. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Motion passes. To exhaust the speakers list.
Thank you. So I just have I have a few issues with this budget proposal. So first of all, I just want to say, like, I've been in this organization for 2 years now, and I've watched kind of the winter bill happen. And I don't necessarily think that this is anything like that because it is being proposed at the beginning. But what I have seen through being involved with ASCSU and stuff is kind of the role that we do have in relation to the rest of the jobs on campus. And, you know, when we look at what we're doing in here compared to everyone else, I don't think it's necessarily our responsibility to gauge that importance over others. And I'm not saying that the work we do in here isn't important, but not everyone has the bargaining and negotiation power that we have in setting our own like salaries. So, and that's something I really believe in, is like having that bargaining and negotiation power. But the truth is no one else has that except for us. So I just think that puts us at a really unequitable stance in raising that without a university-wide initiative in action to raise that. So that's kind of my first point, is that I don't think it's necessarily fair to call it an example, because really we're just raising our own wages here. And I don't think that's very fair to the other students working in the LSC and on campus in general, but really, like, you know, we're right across from the people making less money than us. And I don't think it's very fair. For my second point, I was just looking through the budget again, and I noticed that the president's pay is more than the Speaker of the Senate. And I talked to Robin and Elijah about this earlier. So the way that our actual government works and the way that ASCSU is modeled is as co-equal branches. I think that raising the president's pay over the Speaker of the Senate is I think that takes away from the co-equal powers. The president and the speaker are two different jobs, and they're two different branches. So, you know, we can look at the way the president's job is being performed and the way the speaker's job is being performed, and we can, well, my point is that we shouldn't compare those, because the two branches operate very differently. The president's in charge of the executive branch, the speaker is in charge of the legislative branch. But by raising the president's pay over the speaker's, that sets the executive branch at a higher level than the legislative. And so it's not really about those two positions specifically. It's really more about the branch leaders as a whole. Those are my two main concerns here. And I guess we are still in Q&A.
Yeah.
So I guess I should have saved that for discussion and debate. But I guess my question would be kind of echoing the other questions that have been asked before. How exactly would y'all say it's equitable to raise ASCSU's pay over while there isn't an initiative in place?
That does conclude our time, but you may answer the question if you so choose.
I would like to point out that the Speaker of the Senate, the Chief Justice, the Vice President, they all make the same amount. And the Chief of Staff, I believe, let me see here. So yes, the Vice President, the Speaker, and the Chief Justice all make the same pay. So while I do appreciate drawing attention to the legislative and executive branch, you're not paying attention to the judicial branch, which can also say that is not equitable as well. On paper, all three of these positions do similar things. On paper, I would like to make that very clear. When we were first talking about the idea of raising the pay, we had to make sure that each position that was similar to each other, not the same, but similar, was equal to each other. So yes, the Speaker is head of the legislative branch. The Chief Justice is head of the legislative branch. I'm sorry, thank you, judicial branch. President is head of all of ASCSU. Vice President, Chief of Staff is head of executive. You know what I'm trying to say, it's late. So that's why we did what we did.
That concludes Q&A, moving Bill 5128 to all three committees, and I will yield to Speaker of the Senate Jackson Hunter.
Thank you. Awesome. And with that, that concludes our new business. We will now move on to, one second.
I have a motion.
We'll, yes,
I'd like
there's
to
been a
include
motion.
the fight song at the end of the agenda.
I deny that motion.
There's been a motion to add the fight song to the end of the agenda. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion has been seconded. All for? All against?
Nay.
This motion fails.
I call for division.
Division will not be recognized. There we go. My apologies. We will now move into committee reports, starting with budgetary affairs. Is there a member of the Budgetary Affairs Committee that would like to report?
Yes. Hey everybody, it's Chair Silver, pronouns he, him. We have too much to work on today from last Senate session, so we started looking at the budget. And also I wanted to let everyone know that there will be an emergency budgetary meeting on Tuesday at probably starting around 5 p.m. I will make sure to send out the Zoom information for that, but I know we're seeing a lot of stuff on the floor tonight, so that emergency meeting will definitely help us get back on track so we can finish off the semester strong. But yeah, other than that, I think that's really all I had to say. Thank you.
Internal affairs.
This week we'll be meeting at 4 in the conference room as per usual. However, we will be meeting until we finish going through the docket because next week is our last session of Senate. This will be our last meeting of Internal Affairs Committee for the 51st session. Perhaps I will bring candy. I'm not sure. I would really encourage you all to come this week. The executive job descriptions are a really important document and will set the tone of the 52nd Senate, despite the fact that they are for another branch. Secondly, the order of rankings for the books for the Social Justice Library are: first, So You Want to Talk About Race; second, Freedom is a Constant Struggle; third, How to Be Anti-Racist; fourth, Me and White Supremacy; fifth, The Declining Significance of Race; sixth, The Prosecution of George W. Bush for Murder. From what I can tell, we have still more than $2,000 left in that budget. It was given $3,000 and $300 more for accessibility, and it spent around $980 in the first round, with none of that being from that $300 accessibility fund. So we can afford to buy 10 traditional copies of all of these books, as well as accessible versions for both these 6 and for the original books bought with this fund. So I apologize for making you all vote when we can buy them all anyway. I yield.
Thank you. University affairs.
All right, everyone. Hello, everyone. So we're gonna be looking at a lot of stuff. So let me first just cover what we're looking at. Tomorrow on Thursday from 4 to whenever we finish, we're looking at Lex 5103. One second, and then Bill 5124, planning SCPS offices. We'll be looking at Bill 5125, which is approval of the job descriptions. We'll be looking at Bill 5126, which pertains to the Alexis manager job description. And we'll be looking at Bill 5127, which is the vehicle purchase. And we'll be looking at Bill 5128, which is the approval of the 2020 ASCSU budget. And so please come, and to everyone who's a senator here is non-leadership, thank you very much for all the work you put in, because none of you are getting paid. That's just a fact. And so again, thank you very much for being here. None of you, because again, this is a volunteer. Very much appreciate that. And also thank you very much if you come to looking at job descriptions and budget that, unfortunately, because we're senators, we very unlikely us to get a new position, unlike any of us, any. So if you so, thank you very much. I probably, that's how to bring clear now, but if you do so, thank you very much for volunteering your time and your energy, especially since it's the end of the school year. So thank you very much for being here tonight, and thank you very much for some of your committees, because you are all doing this on a volunteer basis, which is I appreciate very much, because I am getting paid. So thank you very much for doing this work as well while you're not being paid. Thank you. I yield my time.
Senator Sandoval, you have raised your placard.
Yeah, I wanted to see if I could make a motion to add a book to the Social Justice Library.
You may make that motion.
I would like to add You Can't Touch My Hair and Other Things I Still Have to Explain by Phoebe Robinson.
Seconded.
Seconded.
All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. Awesome. We will now move into caucus reports, starting with Women's Caucus. Chair Morgan.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So hi everyone, I'm Treasurer Morgan. I'm a chair of the Women's Caucus as well as Associate Senator for the Native American Culture Center. I'll keep it short. We're not meeting this week. So yeah, have a good week. I yield.
Diversity and Inclusion Caucus, Chair Ritter.
Hey y'all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. I'm Chair Ritter, Chair for the Diversity and Inclusion Caucus, also Senator for the NAC Center. So we had a meeting last week from 2 to 3 p.m. in the conference room. All went well, except there are some guest speakers that didn't make it, didn't show up. So we will probably be meeting next week. Sorry, it's a lot here. I'm at the hotel. Anyways, but we will probably be meeting one last time next week, but I'm undecided, but I will let you all know next week. That is all. I yield.
To legislative officer reports, beginning with Speaker of the Senate. So I don't have that much to report. Thank you to Speaker Pro Tem Baum and Parliamentarian Clark for taking over last week while I was gone. I just want to let y'all know, so the final session of the 51st Senate will be next week on the 27th. So the plan right now, we discussed this in leadership. The plan is to have the last session of the 51st next week. And then the 52nd will have their first official meeting on May 4th. So that's during Dead Week. But we just want to make sure that that long night is not too long. And the 52nd session also, or Senate, also has an opportunity to get through as much ratification and executive, as much ratification as they can with the full meeting time. So at the end of the 51st, we will swear in the new speaker, I believe. And then, yeah, that should be good.
The president and the president and vice president, right?
And the president and vice president, yes. So yeah.
Point of
that will
personal
be-
privilege, it's revive week, not dead week.
And then, yes, and then, so because of that also, and Parliamentarian Clark can talk about this a little bit too, the deadline for legislation will be Friday, this week for all legislation. So please submit that. And nothing will be accepted after that. So if you want legislation for the 51st Senate, I would submit that by Friday. And then if you have any questions about leadership positions prior to the May 4th meeting, I believe, or the end of 27th, whenever it happens for Senate leadership positions, feel free to reach out to me. I've done multiple positions in Senate leadership, so I can answer any questions you have about that. And then just any questions general before we go into our last session. Anything you need from me, please reach out. I don't have much to do. So I am open for y'all anytime you need it. And with that, I will conclude my report and yield to Speaker Pro Tem Baum.
Hey y'all, 4 items. So according to my estimates, we're sitting at $13,437.50. I know there's some bills on the floor presented today that's actually a problem we do want to have. So good job. Questions relating to the Ramsey stress events, since Senate did pass it, y'all are collaborators. Please just email me comments, questions, concerns, or volunteering, just to save time. We're also planning on next week as just a group Senate family photo. So come as you are, there's no dress code. And I will yield my report, but I'm gonna pass out an anonymous feedback form. This is just to have all y'all just to deload and just rant out whatever you want to give us in feedback to our leadership here in Senate. And this feedback will be passed on to the next Senate cabinet so they can understand what was the problems that have occurred this year, if you have any. Thank you, I yield.
Parliamentarian Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and hey, Senate. Just wanted to start off by saying thank you for passing the Constitution Caucus bill. I really do appreciate it. In terms of when we're going to plan on meeting, I was thinking, well, there's a couple of times in mind, and honestly, I was going to send out a group me poll just to see where everybody is and what their availability looks like. It is definitely a pretty tough time these last few weeks of the academic year, and so completely optional for anyone who can make it, but I was thinking possibly Thursdays from 2 to 3 p.m. So right after Women's Caucus, right before University Affairs. But if anyone has any ideas with that, just let me know. Like Speaker Hunter just said, the legislation deadline for all legislation in the 51st Senate will be due by Friday at midnight. This also, if anyone is planning on submitting any more monetary bills, it will have to require written documentation from the ASCSU advisor, so Jesse, and the Director of Finance, Emily over there, just to make sure that it is a feasible option going forward. And you can find that in Section 5, subsection L of our bylaws. Continuing on, just created a new legislation template over the weekend. Feeling very great about it. There's a pretty cool header on there. Hopefully you all have seen a couple of bills looking like that. If any authors dissent to me making formatting changes to their bills, just feel free to let me know. But I'm planning on making those adaptations for the remainder of the bills that we have appearing in Senate for this year. And then if anybody else is interested in running for my position next Senate, just please reach out to me. Yeah, I would love to share some guidance and assistance, and I'm going to be here until August. And so, yeah, with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield.
Recruitment and Retention Officer.
Yeah, hi everyone. So yeah, just to echo Parliamentarian Clark, I don't plan on running for this role again. So if you're interested in running for this position for 52nd Senate, I'd be happy to set up a meeting in person, virtually. Just let me know. And also just an announcement. Here's a QR code up front to vote for the senator and associate senator of the semester. If you haven't voted, please vote, but it'll be open till Monday at 10 p.m. and then I'll close the poll. It's also available on the GroupMe. So yeah, thank you.
Can you yield back to Parliamentarian Clark one more time?
I just wanted to add really quick that President Dixon just handed me bills 51, 14, 15, and 16. Those bills are now signed. And so that's the reallocation sunset clause, the funding for the LIFT RAM secure codes, and the RAM's distress event. And so congratulations to the authors of those bills. They have been signed.
Thank you. We will now move into Senator and Associate Senator reports. Senator Trout.
Hi, y'all. Just really quickly, there are some events going on at the UCA. I think, first off, thank you to anyone who was able to come to the University Chorus concert last night. Really do appreciate y'all coming out to support the concert. And if you want to go see another one, there is another one Friday night. The Chamber Choir concert will be performing at 7:30 in the Griffin Concert Hall. Again, for most of these events, you can live stream. Additionally, our theater department is performing Rocky Horror Show. Very excited to see that. They will also be Friday, April 22nd at 7:30, a showing on Saturday, April 23rd at 7:30, and then on Sunday, April 24th at 2 p.m. Let me see if there are any other events. And then the Graduate String Quartet will be performing on Monday, April 25th at 7:30. Please go see our graduate students being awesome. And that's all I have. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. They are all on the UCA website, and because you're students, tickets are free. And I think we all need a good, event to go to de-stress for the week. So with that, thank you, Chair, and I yield.
Senator Epperson.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say thank you to everyone who came out to the various percentage nights at Cafe Mex, Panda, and today was Modern Market. However, the rest of the month, so the next 10 days, we are still doing the hygiene drive for Rams Against Hunger. and the drop-off boxes for those are in various computer labs. I've sent those out on the group meet. So if you could donate, anything would be appreciated, and thank you. I yield.
Senator Waller.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason. Pronouns are he and his. I've spoken to a lot of you about this, but I intend to run for Speaker Pro Tem 4 for the 52nd Senate. So I'm just announcing my candidacy in front of y'all. So with that, I yield my time and thank you.
Chair Athey.
The Grant Field book, I'm hoping, I'm still finishing conversations with President Dixon. It's gonna be finished by tomorrow. So hopefully I'll be taking it across by the end of this week and getting those copies back early next week. I know that this is handing out for the last session of the 51st Senate. So maybe it's a reason for you to stick around for the 52nd, maybe. Also, I learned about a project from the SDC on Monday of this week. So I will be submitting it by this Friday and then motioning to expedite it this next week. I am taking it to budgetary affairs and taking it to all of the appropriate parties so that it's getting all of its stuff done. I'm asking for $8,000 in that bill, just so you're all aware. I'd also like to note what I found in some research that I was doing. The changes of accessibility in the Constitution, as well as the change to read the land acknowledgement at the beginning of each session, was passed in the 48th Senate. For those of you keeping track, that means at least 2 of the bills written in the 50th Senate were literally unknowingly redoing work that was already done. That's encouraging as an SDPS senator. I'm excited for the Constitution Caucus to ensure all of these changes are reflected. Thanks, I yield.
Associate Doric.
I mean, it's getting worse. Dorak.
Dorak. Okay. I'll remember.
At least we're trying. Some people don't even try. Basically, all I was going to say is, hi, I'm Emily. I'm one of the eco leaders on campus. And basically, if nobody has anything else going on tomorrow from 4 to 5, all of us are doing a showcase of various events that we've been doing like all semester, like projects that we've been doing. I got community gardens on campus that starts getting implemented next year. They're free for any student who wants to join. I know NG did one too. I honestly could not tell you what it is. I have not been paying attention to my coworkers, which is really encouraging. Yeah, so if nobody has anything to do, it's free to show up, and then you can hear about us rant about what we spent the past 16 weeks spending all of our time doing. With that, I yield.
Thank you. And then you'll have to tell me how to pronounce your name one more time.
It's Chum.
Senator Chum.
Point of information, Senator Birch has had his placard up for the past 5 minutes now.
My bad. You'll be next, Senator Birch.
Business day tomorrow, LSC Theater. Any questions, direct to me.
Senator Chime.
Yeah, so as Emily was saying, we're gonna have our showcase tomorrow, so please come. It's gonna be awesome, promise. Yeah. And also for the back office, this Saturday, we're going to have our Celebrating Black Excellence Gala at the LSC here in the ballroom C and D. It's gonna be from 5 to 9. And again, we're going to have our Pursuit of Excellence Award ceremony on May 1st at Sherflag in the Grand Ballroom here as well in the LSC. Thanks, AEO.
Senator Williamson.
All right, so a couple things at the Pride Center coming up on May 2nd. The Pride Center and the back office have a craft corner collaboration, and on May 2nd, we'll be having a tie-dye party outside the east of the LSC. You can come tie-dye a t-shirt, whatever, hang out. The first ever Pride Night with the CSU softball team is April 30th. It's not night, it's afternoon. April 30th at 1 p.m. It's free admission. Dr. Ashley Grice, our director, is throwing out the first pitch. It should be fun. We have our Lavender graduation coming up, which is for seniors within the LGBTQIA community who are graduating. This is also when we talk about awards, scholarships, and have a fun end of the year event. That'll be Friday, April 29th at 5:30 in the LSC Theater. A live stream will also be available. To shout out our friends at the WGAC, some events for Sexual Assault Awareness Month is the keynote is tomorrow night from 6 to 7 p.m. Virtual with some in-person viewing options. So check out the Women's and Gender Advocacy Center Instagram or webpage to see information about that keynote. It's going to be really cool. They also have their Survivor Story project currently going on their Instagram. You can check that out as well. That's all I've got. I yield.
Thank you, Officer Torres, back to you.
Yeah, so hi everyone. We're kind of wrapping up a PETA Heritage Month. And well, our keynote speaker this year is Chanel Miller, who wrote the accredited and acclaimed New York Times bestseller, Know My Name. It's a book about how she is as a survivor herself, and how the effects of like the Brock Turner case, like the aftermath of that. So I really encourage you to go. It's on Zoom. Yeah, thank you.
I definitely recommend that event. Are there any other center or associate center reports? Seeing none, will the speaker pro tem please call the end of the roll? Senator Burge,
Motion to use opening roll call as closing roll call.
is there a second?
Second.
All for?
Aye.
All against? This motion is adopted. We will now adjourn.
Good job, everyone. Wonderful. Only an hour.